Welcome to the fantasy audiobook, Uchiha, starting from Tobirama Jinchuriki. Chapter 61. Qing Shui Kid, tell me why you can carry my power. Qian Shu Feijian asked Qing Shui in a deep voice. In his opinion, Qing Shui must have used some secret technique to imprison his soul, treating him as an existence similar to a tailed beast. It's not simple. Even for Senju Tobirama, things like the soul have only scratched the surface. It would be terrible if one could draw the power from the soul by summoning it. However, Senju Tobirama did not think that Qing Shui had reached such a height. At present, his power was controlled by himself and could be withdrawn with his subjective consciousness. But even so, Senju Tobirama must understand the level here. Fortunately, he was sealed in Qing Shui's body. With his wisdom and calmness, Senju Tobirama believed that he would not be fooled by the evil Uchiha kid. If his eldest brother Senju Hashirama was sealed here, it would be all over. The simple eldest brother, in Qianju Feijian's opinion, would be fooled by Qing Shui into being unable to find the north, and then enthusiastically lend all his power to Qing Shui. Even Senju Tobijian can't imagine that scene. Qing Shui held a pair of scarlet Sharingan, clapped his hands and stood on top of the thousand-armed Buddha. There was also Hashirama in his body cheering him on, shouting, Qing Shui, hurry up, I still have a lot of chakra, for the fire the will rushes. Such a world is really hell. I don't know, it's none of my business, Tobirama. Qing Shui frowned, then laughed again. Actually, summoning you into my body was an unlucky incident. Qianju Tobijian narrowed his eyes and raised his brows, signaling Qing Shui to continue. I told you, right. I want to use your wisdom to solve the current problems between Uchiha and the village, so I need to have a conversation with you. Qing Shui looked at Tobirama calmly and opened his eyes to tell lies. I have heard about the dirt reincarnation you developed, but my grandfather's classics did not leave any related techniques, so I tried to work backwards from the results and wanted to study this myself. Technique. If I could reincarnate your filthy soil, wouldn't I be able to talk to you? Senju Tobirama laughed disdainfully. He acknowledged Qing Shui's talent in cultivation, his water escape, illusion skills, and sword skills. At the same age, even Senju Tohama had to admit that he was far from the Qing Shui of now. But if we talk about the ability to develop ninjutsu and forbidden arts, Senju Tobirama has really never convinced anyone. Back then, whenever he developed a technique, Senju Hashirama would throw it into the list of forbidden techniques if it was not water release. In the end, it became a full scroll, so after collecting some other forbidden techniques, he named it as the Sealed Book. This is the gold content of Qinsho Feijian. You want to filth me, brat, you won't dig my grave, will you? Qianju Tobirama's eyes became dangerous. Of course not. Why are you so extreme, old man? Do you think I am you? Qing Shui glanced at Senju Tobirama with disdain and said mockingly, I feel more and more that the third Hokage still has eyesight. It's just right to give you 0 points for your will of fire. Qianju Tojian's brows jumped uncontrollably. This is really hard to get through, isn't it? Can you please stop mentioning it? Don't change the subject. Qing Shui kid, if you want me to teach you the technique, just tell the truth. Qian Shu Feijian crossed his arms, but he was not very confident. If Qing Shui doesn't want to tell him, then Qing Shui himself has nothing to lose. But unexpectedly, Qing Shui still nodded and continued to explain. You know, the first step to reincarnate in the dirty land is to first perceive the existence of the pure land, and then capture the specific soul through the information of the deceased. Senju Tobirama nodded unexpectedly, but he originally thought that Qing Shui was trying to prevaricate him by using the idea of reincarnation in dirty soil, but it seemed that he really found some ways to do it. Is it possible that Qing Shui is also a genius in ninjutsu? What Senju Tobirama doesn't know is that Qing Shui, who has the inventor of the ninja world Tobirama version, cannot completely launch the forbidden techniques he invented in the short term. After all, when Senju Tobirama developed it, it also requires a lot of time and materials to support. But it is not difficult for Qing Shui to guess the general mechanism. But after I sensed the pure land, I had a strong sense of one of the souls, so I tried to summon. Qing Shui sighed helplessly. That soul is you. As for why I can borrow your power, that's your own problem. At the beginning of the summoning, I felt regretful. At that time, I thought I had summoned disaster, because I realized at that time that I could push my chakra to you, and I was worried that you would forcefully extract it from me, of chakra. Senju Tobirama blinked and quietly tried to extract Qing Shui's chakra, but nothing happened. Qing Shui had a dull look on his face. It is indeed the evil thousand-armed old ghost. My worries are correct. But despite saying this, Qing Shui still used the power of the thousand-armed Tobirama, in reverse, passing his power to the thousand-armed Tobirama. Then, a dramatic scene happened. Senju Tobirama's eyes turned to a scarlet color, and a dark Magatama appeared. What are you doing, kid? Take your evil power back quickly and don't pollute me. Senju Tobirama waved his hands violently, but his body was very sincere and he kept scanning the surroundings with his Sharingan. Don't tell me, this Sharingan is indeed much easier to use than his eyes. Look at this observation power and dynamic vision, it's really good. Involuntarily, Senju Tobirama thought of Uchiha Izuna's words mocking him, hate your tragic fate of not having the Sharingan. If only I could have a pair of Sharingan, and I didn't beat that fool to incontinence, he would be considered clean in the toilet. It's a pity that Uchiha Izuna is dead. It's the same between you and me. I can't take the initiative to draw your power, but similarly, you can't draw my power. Qing Shui withdrew his power, and the Magatama in Kionju Tojian's eyes slowly disappeared. Inexplicably, Kionju Tobijian still feels a little sad. He hasn't had enough yet. I think the key to this is that I recognized you from the beginning, but you were full of fear of me, just like a Jinchuriki or a tailed beast. Qing Shui shook his head with emotion. Then what can I do? I have enough sense, but some people are hard to say. Kionju Tojian snorted coldly. He didn't believe Qing Shui's nonsense. So, now that he could lend his power to Qing Shui, wouldn't he be a little more sympathetic to this evil Uchiha brat? Impossible. This kind of thing is absolutely impossible. Tobirama, I remember that you still owe me a teaching technique. Qing Shui glanced at Qianshu Feijian and said with a half-smile, why, you're not going to default on your debt, are you? Kionju Tobirama narrowed his eyes and said with a stern mouth, how is that possible? But immediately, he began to think, what should he teach Qing Shui? If he uses a few ordinary ninjutsu to deal with it, such as water escape, earth escape and other 5 elements escape techniques, it will appear that he is too unorganized. But if Qing Shui's forbidden technique is taught to him, he really felt that Qing Shui could learn it. In that case, this Uchiha brat would grow up too fast and be too scary. After careful consideration, Kionju Tobijian raised the corner of his mouth. He thought of a technique that could be taught to Qing Shui, but he couldn't use it even after learning it. The art of using each other's detonating talismans. This technique is said to be a forbidden technique, but in fact it is not difficult. The key is to create a large number of detonating symbols in advance and store them in a different space, and then perform chain summons. Ultimately, this is a technique of killing people with money and resources. As long as Senju Tojian teaches Qing Shui normally but does not give him the corresponding psychic contract, it is actually equivalent to not learning. Senju Tobirama is very sure. Only he can sense the secret detonating talisman space he set. Fight with me, you're still far behind. Qianshu Tobijian laughed in his heart, as if he had already seen Qing Shui Hong Wen's appearance. I will never go back on what I said. Senju Tobirama raised his eyebrows in a good mood. Kid, I'll teach you a forbidden technique this time. Unlike your paper-based will of fire, I am open-minded enough with my plan. Even forbidden techniques can be taught to an evil Uchiha brat like you. Senju Tobirama smiled. Qing Shui frowned slightly. Qianshu Feijian's behavior was extremely abnormal. After having been with him for so long, Qing Shui can be sure that this old man must give him a makeover. This expression and demeanor are exactly the same as when Qing Shui planned to play a trick on Tobirama. Others can't tell, but Qing Shui understands very well. Sensho Tobirama looked at Qing Shui's frowning brows with great help, and said slowly, the technique I want to teach you is a forbidden technique I independently developed, the technique of multiplying detonating talismans. I rank the level of ninjutsu at a level. The principle is to use the detonating talisman to continuously summon the detonating talisman, concentrate on a point and explode continuously. It's so powerful that even the tailed beasts can't resist it if used properly. Qing Shui blinked and used the detonating talisman technique on each other. He was really good at this technique. When Qing Shui asked Asuma to think too much, Senju Tobirama felt something bad, and took the initiative to bring up the previous bet, asking Qing Shui to agree to his request if he lost, and not to harm Konoha. Qing Shui responded, "Even if I win, you were and are my idol. I will not let you step down when the time comes. I feel sorry for you." In a gentle way, he successfully exploded the technique of mutually multiplying detonating talismans. Since Qing Shui mastered this technique, he hasn't had time to study it yet. First, it is not easy to explain the source, which makes it easy for the well-developed Kionju Tojian to notice something strange, which will create a gap between Qing Shui and Qing Shui, making it difficult to borrow his power in the future. Qing Shui thinks that Fei Lama's technique is much more powerful than the technique of mutually multiplying detonating talismans. Second, this technique must be used in conjunction, otherwise they will both die by self-destruction. It is necessary to master the art of reincarnation from the dirty earth, and use the immortal dead from the dirty earth to act as death squads. During the explosion, constantly adjust the detonating talisman that is subsequently channeled, and hit the enemy accurately. Otherwise, mastering this technique alone is really useless. In addition to this level, Qing Shui, who understands the mechanism of mutually calling the detonating talisman, even guessed what Tobirama was thinking. He would most likely not tell Qing Shui how to sense the space where he stored the detonating talisman. In this case, this forbidden technique is neither suitable nor capable of exerting its due power, and it has limitations in its use. The combination of the two can be said to be a double insurance, ensuring that Qing Shui will be the same after learning it as if he had not learned it. Old man, you have a good idea. 2 layers of insurance are stacked on top of each other. You are indeed the evil thousand-armed old ghost. Qing Shui complained in his heart, but he soon became happy in his heart. It is true that the technique chosen by Senju Tobirama is useless, but there is a problem. If Senju Tobirama saw that Qing Shui had established his own detonating talisman space without his guidance, what does this second-generation Hokage think in his heart? Some people may feel confused. Qing Shui suppressed his smile. His eyes were very cooperative with a little desire and joy, and he also addressed him with respect. "I have heard of this technique, and I want to learn it, Lord Tobirama." Senju Tobirama hummed and nodded with great satisfaction. "Tobirama-sama, don't tell me, what this Qingshui brat shouted was just a little bit pleasing to the ears. It sounds great, I love it. Since you are so sincere, I will reluctantly teach you this forbidden technique." Chinsho Feijian took a full stance, feeling secretly happy. "Don't you evil Uchiha brats like to talk about me having 0 points for the will of fire?" This matter is flipped over and over again and said, "Just wait. When you can't learn this trick, I will start chanting it too. Why, the genius of Uchiha can't even use the technique I taught you carefully. And you say you're a genius. Pure idiot." Senju Tobirama controlled his emotions very well and entered the teaching mode with the professionalism of the first-generation ninja school principal. The first step is to prepare a huge amount of detonating talismans. Qing Shui's brows twitched and he whispered, "Master Tobirama, where did you get the huge amount of this detonating talisman? Wouldn't it be enough to just ask the Fire Country's arsenal and the ninjas there to do this kind of thing?" "Oh, right, or you can ask the ninjas in the clan to cooperate with you, and you can probably do it within a few months." Senju Tobirama suppressed his laughter. Why was he able to get so many detonating talismans back then? It's not because he is the second-generation Hokage. Even during the Warring States period, he was the head of the Thousand Hands clan and could spend whatever he wanted. This technique is not called the technique of multiplying detonating talismans, but rather the technique of preparing resources in advance and then smashing you to death. Okay, after this step is completed, mark these detonating symbols with psychic contracts, and then transfer them to a different space for storage. The third and final step is to create a summoning object that can be linked with a large amount of detonating talismans as a primer to trigger the spell. Senju Tobirama waved his hand and finished explaining this A-level forbidden technique simply and quickly, without hiding the smile on his face. "Let's go step by step. You first prepare enough detonating talismans. Qing Shui kid, don't worry. I'm here to teach and teach everyone. Unless you meet someone who is particularly stupid, then there is really nothing I can do. By the way, I forgot to tell you just now. This technique is more dangerous and needs to be used in conjunction with the technique of reincarnation. Otherwise, it will be fatal to the caster and the power of this technique will be dispersed. It's okay. You should learn this technique first. As for the technique of reincarnation from dirty soil, there's a chance, maybe I can teach you. While Qianshu Tobirama was talking, he looked at Qing Shui's puffy face and laughed loudly. Who said that only Uchiha can laugh wildly? I, the Senju, can also burst into laughter. At this moment, Senju Tobirama felt that he was finally not an idiot with a 0 score for the will of fire, but a second-generation Hokage with wisdom in his hands. Hey, you're so shameless. Qing Shui protested unconvinced. After all, you have to teach me how to create and sense the storage space, right? Are you afraid that I will find the detonating talisman space you have hidden? Don't provoke me, kid, I was planning to teach you this too. The old god Senju Tobirama folded his arms, but my detonating talisman space is mine. If you have the ability, just go and build one. Look carefully, use your senses, form these seals, and carefully mobilize chakra from the meridians. Senju Tobirama was very calm. It is absolutely impossible for Qing Shui to contact his psychic space. Not only Qing Shui, no one except him can do it. If anyone could sense it, wouldn't it mean that a huge amount of detonating talismans were prepared for the enemy? Shooting oneself in the foot is something Qianshu Feijian can't do. I saw. Qing Shui formed the seal slowly, closed his eyes slightly, and actually summoned a detonating talisman in his hand. Master Tobirama, is this what you are doing? And Qianju Tobirama, who was holding his arms, nodded unexpectedly, that's right. But a moment later, Senju Tobirama seems to have noticed something is wrong. No, where did this detonating talisman come from? Impossible. Could it be that another ninja set up a detonating talisman space and let Qingshui find it? Until now, Senju Tobirama still didn't think Qingshui could find his detonating talisman space. As a rigorous man, he set up multiple restrictions on it to ensure that only he could open it. Even if it was his sister-in-law Uzumaki Mito, Senju Tobirama didn't think she could crack it in a short time, let alone Qingshui, a kid who is not good at sealing techniques. This is his confidence. Oh, you really got lucky. There are others who have the same idea as me, so you found it. Sure enough, you can't underestimate the heroes of the ninja world. Senju Tobirama sighed, motioning Qingshui to bring the detonating talisman in his hand closer and observe it carefully. When he saw it, he froze. This is not a detonating talisman stored by others, this is his own multiplication detonating talisman. Senju Tobirama's eyes seemed to be glued to this palm-sized paper, his mind was blank, and even his mouth was slightly opened in shock, a little out of control. Qingshui raised the corner of his mouth and used the Senju Tobirama power, in reverse. So, the Sharingan with full pupil power appeared in Senju Tobirama's eye sockets again. Like to watch, then use the Uchiha family's Sharingan to see it clearly. Take a closer look, whose detonating tag is this? Senju Tobirama didn't have time to reject the evil pupil power of the Uchiha, and subconsciously adapted to this excellent observation ability, observing the details of the detonating tag very carefully. The more he looked, the faster the Magatama in Senju Tobirama's eyes turned, and the afterimages were about to merge into one. Qingshui laughed at this scene. If Uchiha Izuna saw this, he would have fainted directly. And at this moment, Senju Tobirama's reaction was actually similar to Izuna's imaginary reaction. No, how is this possible? Senju Tobirama blinked his scarlet eyes, falling into great confusion, his mind was in turmoil. At this moment, he began to recall the day he met Qingshui. The gears of fate began to turn from that night. From Qingshui's water escape, illusion, and swordsmanship that were exactly the same as his. To Qingshui's answer on the test paper on the Will of Fire, he wrote down the idea that he had put forward as a child, ninjas should limit their emotions. To Qingshui's talent for learning and transforming ninjutsu. Countless fragments flashed through Senju Tobirama's mind, connected together, like a movie. And the anchor point of all these thoughts stayed on this detonating talisman today. Tobirama, am I right or wrong? Why don't you say anything? Qingshui, wait, let me slow down first, let me slow down. Even Senju Tobirama himself didn't realize that he didn't call Qingshui a kid just now. Shisui shrugged, and he was already happy in his heart. You like to act like an expert and be mysterious, right? Let's see what you can do this time. No, no, Senju Tobirama muttered in his heart. When Shisui taught his monkey son the fire escape technique, it was clearly the method of Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Izuna. I thought at that time. At that time, not only Uchiha Madara noticed the abnormality, but Senju Tobirama did the same. The third person who was most familiar with the changes in the nature of Uchiha Izuna and Uchiha Madara's fire escape technique was not any Uchiha, but Senju Tobirama, who had studied them the most. At that time, he was happy in his heart, but he was not sure that Shisui was the reincarnation of Izuna. After all, one or two fire escape techniques are not enough to see the whole picture. And Uchiha Madara identified Shisui as Izuna's swordsmanship, but in Senju Tobirama's view, it was just Shisui using fire escape to control his own swordsmanship, and it had nothing to do with Uchiha Izuna. Senju Tobirama selectively ignored that the two men who had fought for more than 10 years, in the end, their swordsmanship was really indistinguishable. In particular, Senju Tobirama was the one who was best at stealing. He plagiarized Uchiha Izuna's moves without any psychological pressure, and he was proud of it instead of being ashamed. So, at that time, Senju Tobirama just felt that there was a fool who was crazy against him in his previous life. Then in this life, Shisui, who is like Izuna, should accept his transformation and work for the will of fire. And Shishui's previous talent and thinking were similar to his, and Senju Tobirama just thought it was a coincidence with a very small probability. But today, this mutual detonation talisman seemed to question Senju Tobirama's heart. Is all this really a coincidence? At this moment, Senju Tobirama, like Uchiha Madara at that time, remembered the widely circulated conjecture of Senju and Uchiha. The theory of reincarnation. It's impossible. If my chakra is reincarnated, how can Shisui be so proficient in Uchiha Izuna's fire escape? No, I am actually quite proficient in his fire escape. Senju Tobirama frantically searched for the answer in his heart, and slowly looked at Shishui's face, and he was stunned. After Uchiha Madara burst out his bloodline, Shishui's temperament and face changed imperceptibly because of the advantages of his bloodline. Although the time was short, the special temperament in it could not escape Senju Tobirama's eyes. At first glance, he doesn't look like Uchiha Izuna, but the more you look at him, the more you feel like Uchiha Madara's family. Could it be that Shisui is the reincarnation of Uchiha Izuna? Wrong. If this is the case, how to explain the mutual multiplication of detonating symbols? Except for himself, no one can unlock the restrictions in this space so easily. Senju Tobirama is very sure of this. Especially, in addition to fire escape, Shisui is also so good at his water escape. Senju Tobirama stared at Shisui. The Sharingan, stimulated by the power of Senju, exploded with extremely powerful eye power, as if it wanted to see Shisui from the inside out. Shisui looked at the surprised old man in a funny way. Don't tell me, Senju Tobirama and the Sharingan match up quite well. His eyes were originally red, but now they have a few magatama, so there's really no sense of inconsistency. You are talking, Tobirama. Are you pretending to be an expert if you don't talk? Shisui tried to apply for interaction, but apart from the magatama in his eyes that kept turning, Shisui was still stunned. He just stared at Shisui without saying a word. At this moment, Senju Tobirama was recalling the conjecture about his reincarnation. After a long time, his eyes suddenly widened. He thought about it, and came up with an answer that was outrageous, but could explain Shishui's puzzle. Uchiha Izuna, even chakra has to compete with my chakra for reincarnation. Kionju Tobijian suddenly ignited a soaring fighting spirit and roared in his heart, you can't believe it. My chakra and soul are both in Shishui's body. With 1 against 2, the advantage is mine. When I find your chakra in Shishui's body, I will completely eradicate your teeth. Make bold assumptions and verify carefully. As a scientist, Senju Tobirama has always maintained this attitude. This is true regardless of people or things. That's why Senju Tobirama came up with such an ingenious explanation. And when he calmed down for a moment, broke away from the stage of making bold assumptions, and began to carefully verify. But I found that the logic was really very self-consistent, and I didn't even find any loopholes. Ching Shui knows his water escape and sword skills, which are related to ninjutsu and combat, and are external manifestations. The words on the Will of Fire test paper that are exactly the same as Senju Tobirama's childhood thoughts are internal manifestations. The real truth lies in Ching Shui's explanation of how to summon him into the body. If it weren't for his chakra reincarnation, how could he accurately sense his soul from the Pure Land without a medium? Then, Ching Shui was able to establish a power link with him, and he could use it as smoothly as he himself, and he could even sense the detonating talisman space that belonged to him. After receiving this series of evidence, Kionju Tojian could no longer say to himself, "This is a coincidence. How could there be so many coincidences?" On the other hand, Senju Tobirama found that there seemed to be sufficient evidence that Ching Shui was the reincarnation of Izuna. The perfect compatibility between Izuna's sword Muramasa and Chingsui, the same fire escape properties, form-changing techniques, and most importantly, the bloodline from Uchiha Madara, made Senju Tobirama almost certain. Ching Shui must be related to Uchiha Izuna and Uchiha Madara. From Senju Tobirama's perspective, Ching Shui is a descendant of Uchiha Kagami, and he doesn't know if he has a blood relationship with Uchiha Madara's lineage. Therefore, regardless of bloodline, there is only one possibility of reincarnation. From the laning target Senju Tobirama, you get Senju bloodline, Senju Tobirama version. Ching Shui looked at Qianshu Tobijian, who was deep in thought in a funny way. Chinsho Feijian exhaled a long, deep breath. Of course, as the head of the Thousand Hands clan, he had heard of the theory of reincarnation, and had even done some research on it. For this rumor, I also did some interpretation of the personality portraits of the Senju and Uchiha clan leaders. Although each of them has similarities, they still have their own distinctive characteristics. Therefore, the influence of my and Uchiha Izuna's chakra on Ching Shui is also limited. But Ching Shui also has my soul in his body. The Thousand Hands Tobirama suddenly burst into flames. There was absolutely no way he could lose in a competition with Uchiha Izuna. Ching Shui looked at Qianshu Tobijian speechlessly. This old man had fallen into his own world since he took out the mutual multiplication detonating talisman, and now it was even more inexplicably ignited. Even his hair stood up and the Magatama in his Sharingan turned into an afterimage. If he continued like this, Ching Shui was afraid that Senju Tobirama would open the Mangekyo Sharingan before him. Ching Shui kid, I agree with your explanation for now. Kionju Tojian pretended not to see Ching Shui's joking expression, coughed and said, "In the future, if you want to borrow my power under reasonable circumstances, you can still discuss it with me." Ching Shui raised his eyebrows. "Why are you speaking so dishonestly?" "Forget it, Tobirama, your power is only so much." Ching Shui looked at Tobirama's Sharingan with a smile and whispered, "How about it? Isn't the power of the Sharingan very intuitive and powerful?" Senju Tobirama subconsciously wanted to nod. These eyes were really useful and matched perfectly with his fighting style. But immediately, he still shook his head with disdain. "Kid, stop bragging. Who did Uchiha Izuna lose to back then? I don't need to tell you more, right? Who asked you?" Ching Shui rolled his eyes at Tobirama. "Okay, things have been explained clearly, I'm going to practice." Qianshu Tobijian stared at Ching Shui's disappearing figure. I don't know if it was a psychological suggestion, but Senju Tobirama always felt that just now Ching Shui looked like a ninja of Madara Uchiha's lineage, but now he has a hint of his temperament. Hokage building. Old man, I must refuse this matter. When I return to Miaomu Mountain this time, the great toad immortal has given me a new prophecy. Jiraiya waved his hands repeatedly and looked solemnly. The prophecy has changed greatly compared to before. I must find the son of the prophecy as soon as possible. I'm afraid I won't have time to take Asuma and this Uchiha brat. Jiraiya still hasn't said a word. His apprentice has the opportunity to become the child of prophecy. If Asuma and Ching Shui are accepted, it may break the established destiny and make the entire ninja world more chaotic. Sarutobi Hiruzen narrowed his eyes, lit up the cigarette, and started smoking slowly. He was dissatisfied. "Jiraiya, what does the oil word forehead protector on your forehead mean? Are you no longer a ninja of Konoha?" Sarutobi Hiruzen stared at Jiraiya's forehead protector and said in a deep voice. "Where did you put your Konoha forehead protector?" For a ninja, a forehead protector is a very important and symbolic accessory and armor. Almost all rebellious ninjas would choose to wear a forehead protector with the village pattern crossed out, which means a clean break with the past ties and life. And the fact that Jiraiya changed his forehead protector without authorization means that he is the disciple of Hiruzen Sarutobi. If it were any other ninja, even someone at the level of Hatake Tsukumo would have been severely criticized and investigated. Jiraiya scratched his head and looked at the angry Sarutobi Hiruzen with a playful smile. Old man, after all, this is the mission assigned to me by Mount Myoboku to save the ninja world. It is not just a matter of the Leaf Village. Don't worry, I will be a ninja of Konoha whether I live or die, but before I die, I still have to find a way to find the Son of Prophecy in order to save this ninja world. Sarutobi Hiruzen exhaled a puff of smoke and waved his hands irritably. Go, be your toad. Jiraiya chuckled, turned around and left. After exiting the door, he looked back. Pay attention to your health, old man, and remember to smoke less. He quickly ran away. Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head helplessly. Mount Myoboku is one of the 3 holy places in the ninja world today. It holds powerful psychic beasts that can change the battlefield, as well as the power of the immortals that all ninjas desperately desire. Therefore, even though Sarutobi Hiruzen was very unhappy with Myobokuyama for driving Konoha's important ninjas, he still couldn't really fall out with these toads, especially since Jiraiya even changed his forehead protector. There are some words that are meaningless to say in this situation. It is better to let Jiraiya hang out with Myobokuyama and try to get a few more Konoha ninjas to sign the psychic scrolls. Hey, Jiraiya, how could you just listen to a bunch of toads? Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head in disgust. It had always been the case that ninjas commanded psychic beasts. I had never heard of ninjas being commanded by psychic beasts. If those toads are really so powerful, why didn't we see them when we were the first and second generation adults? With Jiraiya's behavior, it is impossible to be Chingshui and Asuma's teacher. These 2 children are the future of Konoha, and they should stay away from those toads. Then it can only be Tsunade. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled bitterly. Compared with Jiraiya who obeyed the orders of Mt. Myoboku, Tsunade who gave up on herself was not easy to worry about. Can you really be a good teacher in this state? And Orochimaru has already drifted away from his teacher. Therefore, in order to give Asuma the rightful status as the direct master and disciple of the Hokage line, this was no longer possible. These 3 apprentices of mine, alas. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed, and ordered the Anbu beside him, call Tsunade over. Old man, are you kidding me? Tsunade sat on the chair opposite Sarutobi Hiruzen, folding her arms and shaking her legs impatiently. I won't agree. Let your Asuma and that Uchiha brat hire someone else. Sarutobi Hiruzen's expression froze. He didn't even know how he, the teacher, could act like this. There are 3 apprentices, 2 of whom don't wear Konoha forehead protectors. If they weren't somewhat famous, no one would know that they are Konoha ninjas. The only one who wears a forehead protector seriously, he secretly conducts human experiments to hide his secrets, and gets involved with Shimura Danzo. This really made him not know what to say. Tsunade coughed. She drank all night again yesterday. She didn't get up impatiently until the Anbu came to her door. The matter of accepting Asuma and Chingshui as disciples. Tsunade was somewhat interested in Chingshui, an Uchiha brat who had mastered palm senjutsu proficiently and could teach it to other ninja school students. But when she thinks back to her life so far, when a family is disbanded, relatives and friends die, and former partners part ways, they lose interest in taking on disciples, and are even a little afraid. In her heart, she already vaguely felt that she was an unfortunate woman. Cement seals the heart, which is very suitable to describe the current Tsunade. Tsunade, I know it's not easy for you. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed quietly and said slowly, but, this is not because I want to trouble you, old man, but because of the future of Konoha village, I have to find you. What does the future of the village have to do with me? I have already given a lot to Konoha. Why do you want to ask me for anything? Tsunade waved her hand impatiently and said sternly. Sarutobi Hiruzen's expression froze, and even the Anbu lurking in the Hokage's office quickly averted their eyes, trying to reduce their presence again, for fear of attracting the attention of these 2 people. This is the gold content of the Naruto series. If other Konoha ninjas don't even dare to think about it, they dare to say it directly to the Hokage, and nothing happens. And Tsunade is the heavyweight of the Hokage series. Her grandfather is the first Hokage, her second grandfather is the second Hokage, her grandmother is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and her teacher is the third Hokage. Even if Tsunade breaks Konoha's forehead protector in half now, everyone will think that she is just joking after drinking too much, and that the big girl is just ignorant. If anyone dares to go out and talk nonsense, that person may not be able to see the Hokage rock in Konoha the next day. Tsunade, I can't help it. In order for Tobirama-sama's legacy to be fulfilled, I can only find you. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled bitterly, as if he really had no choice, and said slowly. As you know, Lord Tobirama has put in a lot of effort to solve the problems between Uchiha and the village. Of course, the effect is also excellent. Under the leadership of Kagami, the Uchiha clan has a tendency to merge with Konoha. However, Kagami's death due to the war interrupted this process. Nowadays, you know the tense relationship between Uchiha and the village, but there is a special child like Uchiha Shisui. Sarutobi Hiruzen began to chat with Tsunade about how unique an Uchiha Shisui was, from the test paper on the will of fire to teaching Asuma fire escape. When she heard Senju Tobirama's name, Tsunade, who was still impatient at first, sat upright and listened carefully. That's the thing, Tsunade, do you know why I chose you, right? Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed. I don't have much comment on Jiraiya and Myobokuyama. You can see Orochimaru's condition, so only you are suitable to be Asuma and Shishui's teacher. Tsunade was silent, and the appearance of Senju Tobirama flashed before her eyes. Tsunade knew that what Hiruzen Sarutobi said was true. This was indeed the wish of her second grandfather and the ills of the village today. And thinking of Shisui, an Uchiha who was good at medical ninjutsu, and who enthusiastically healed his companions and taught ninjutsu using the Sharingan, Tsunade couldn't be disgusted at all, and she was already vaguely interested. I can try, old man, but let me tell you in advance that I may not do well. Tsunade fell down on her seat and said very bachelorly. You have also seen my current state. A ninja suffers from hemophobia, and he is still a medical ninja. I feel ridiculous. Anyway, you just want to use my identity to give Asuma and Uchiha Shisui an identity, right? Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head. I believe you, Tsunade, you will complete the task brilliantly. And, as a teacher who has watched you grow up, I also hope that love and bond can grow again in your heart. Tsunade snorted coldly and waved her hand. Stop saying these meaningless words, old man. I reluctantly agreed to this, and that's it, I'm leaving. As soon as Tsunade finished speaking, she left in a hurry. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at her back and smoked his cigarette with emotion. Compared to Orochimaru and Jiraiya, only Tsunade, the disciple, could barely listen to him. Oh, it's really tiring. I hope Asuma and Shisui will grow up quickly. Sarutobi Hiruzen rubbed his aching lower back, lamenting that time is not forgiving, and thought in his heart. I can only pave the way for you, but it's up to you to grow up, so work hard. And when Sarutobi Hiruzen paved the way for Asuma and Shisui, Black Zetsu, who had been observing Uchiha Obito for a long time, also began to pave the way for the Eye of the Moon project. With the eyesight of Black Zetsu observing the reincarnation of Indra and the Uchiha clan for thousands of years, it has accurately captured the heart of Uchiha Obito. Longing for attention, especially longing to be given, and extremely sensitive, easy to go to extremes. Black Zetsu admitted that Uchiha Madara had a good eye for seeing people, and Uchiha Obito was born to be a good material as a chess piece. Today, Black Zetsu gathered dozens of strong white Zetsu and lurked in all directions of Konoha, pretending to be ninjas from the enemy country. Under Uchiha Satsuna's deliberate publicity, Uchiha Obito's reputation is growing in Konoha. I have to say that a 7-year-old double Magatama Uchiha is indeed worthy of praise. Uchiha Obito also showed amazing talent, and quickly learned the various ninjutsu taught to him by Uchiha Satsuna, proving that he is indeed a genius. And in order to win the heart of Uchiha Obito, Heiju designed a script of beauty-saving hero. The young genius who became famous in Konoha and was assassinated by the enemy suffered a fatal surprise attack at the critical moment, but was saved by the beauty who had always had a crush on him. How could a young man withstand this level of dedication? Black Zetsu, you can also call it Uchiha Rin now, looked at Uchiha Obito not far away quietly, and laughed ferociously. All white Zetsu preparations will proceed as originally planned. Do it. Konoha became a stage in Black Zetsu's plan. The barrier that protected the village was like nothing in front of Baiju's Mayfly technique, and these actors lurked in at will. When Black Ju gave the order, the elite white Ju divided their labors and took action in an orderly manner. One group was responsible for creating a commotion, attracting the attention of the Konoha guards and Anbu, and ensuring that there was no interference from outside factors on the set. One group was keeping an eye on Obito Uchiha, who was eating in the store, and was gearing up to start the show. I have basically mastered the fire release that Elder Setsuna taught me. The next step is to review the Shuriken control technique and Sharingan-I technique. I am getting stronger and stronger. Uchiha Obito was thinking about training in his mind, and while digging into the rice bowl in front of him with a spoon, stuffing it into his mouth, he murmured vaguely. Uchiha Jinchuriki, I will definitely defeat you and tell the village, Lin and everyone who is the real genius. A genius like me, a genius of the Uchiha clan, should use my power to possess everything as Elder Setsuna said. If anyone stands in front of me, I will knock them all down with my eyes. Even when he was having a meal, Uchiha Obito was talking about training in Jinchuriki. He seemed to be possessed by a demon. He was seizing all the time and working hard, which was quite like Uchiha Metkai's style. With such an indifferent attitude, Uchiha Obito didn't even notice Uchiha Lin sitting quietly next to him. Uchiha Lin, Black Zetsu, looked at Uchiha Obito's hard work with a smile. Her eyes were full of doting, and she sighed in her heart. You are working really hard, Obito, keep working hard. Practice seriously like this, learn all ninjutsu and eye skills, and become the destroyer of this world. In return, I grant you an unforgettable quality time. Uchiha Obito was still munching on his meal, and added a few more portions of meat and eggs to replenish the energy lost during intense training. A moment later, when he burped and stretched in relaxation, something happened suddenly. The boss in front of Uchiha Obito suddenly had a distorted face. He suddenly took out a sharp ninja sword and slashed hard towards his head. Uchiha Obito was shocked, but the high-intensity training in recent days allowed him to react. The double Magatama Sharingan emerged, and a kunai flew out of his hand, blocking the knife accurately. Something's wrong. What a powerful force, are you a ninja from another village? Uchiha Obito gritted his teeth and resisted the huge force coming from the ninja sword, his face gradually turning red. He. The 7-year-old genius of the Uchiha family who opened his eyes, in order to prevent you from becoming the next Uchiha Madara, why don't you die here? The shop owner, who was amiable just now has extremely ferocious facial features, and is muttering like crazy, your strength is really weaker than feces, and you are still a weak child. Die. Uchiha Obito breathed heavily. The elite white Zetsu might not have any powerful ninjutsu except for wood escape, but his power was extraordinary, far beyond what he could resist. Sharingan. I need to use the power of the Sharingan. Uchiha Obito quickly recalled the practical skills Uchiha Setsuna taught him in his heart. The Magatama in his eyes rotated rapidly, staring straight into the eyes of the shop owner. Fall down and scream under the power of the Sharingan. But to his surprise, the shop owner just swayed for a moment, and then said with a sinister smile. Double Magatama Sharingan. He. And at this time, behind Uchiha Obito, a cold sound of breaking through the air exploded in the air. The diner who was eating just now stabbed him in the back with a sharp knife. A small shop seemed to have turned into a battlefield for Uchiha Obito, with endless ambushes in all directions. Uchiha Rin, who was sitting next to Uchiha Obito, also started to move at this moment. Uchiha Obito was sweating profusely. The shop owner's blade from the front was already too hard for him to withstand. He was still trying to figure out how to deal with the stabbing attack from behind. Now was there another surprise attack coming from the side? In a daze, Uchiha Obito seemed to see himself being penetrated by 3 ninja swords from the chest, back and abdomen, and he looked like he could no longer die. Setsuna Uchiha never taught him how to break this kind of fatal situation. At this moment, Uchiha Obito was extremely anxious. If he could have a pair of 3 Magatama Sharingan eyes, he might be able to directly break the offensive of the store owner at the beginning of the crisis and resolve his own crisis. But double Magatama is double Magatama. But it was different from what he expected. The Uchiha Lin on the side did not come to attack him, but the angel who came to save him. I saw Uchiha Lin opening her hands, blocking Uchiha Obito in front of him, and taking the inevitable knife from behind for him. The ninja sword passed through Uchiha Lin's body mercilessly, and blood spread all over the floor. Uchiha Obito was stunned, and the shop owner in front of him quietly withdrew his strength and swayed on the spot. The illusion of Sharingan is still so troublesome. And when Uchiha Obito turned around, he saw Uchiha Lin, whose profile looked very much like Lin, blocking the killing blow for him. Lin, Uchiha Obito's mind felt like an electric shock. He was about to burst into boundless anger when he saw the family emblem on Uchiha Lin's clothes and her face that looked like Lin, but upon closer inspection, she was not Lin. In an instant, I fell into confusion again. Who is this? Why did she save me? I don't know her. But in his eyes, the double Magatama was still spinning, turning into a triple Magatama. At this moment, Uchiha Obito felt the rising power in his eyes, glared at the shop owner angrily, and kicked over the diner who had impaled Uchiha Lin. Let's go, the assassination failed. The shop owner wailed. If Ching Shui had come to see it, his acting skills would have been terrible, but it was in line with Uchiha Obito's perception and taste. The diners and the shop owner threw a huge amount of smoke bombs, and in the blink of an eye, the two leading actors, Baiju, hid in the earth through the mist and were never found again. As a result, the store that was still in danger just now returned to peace, with only Uchiha Obito and Uchiha Rin lying in a pool of blood. Uchiha Obito hurried over to help Uchiha Lin, his eyes full of anxiety. Are you okay? I'll take you to the doctor now. Uchiha Lin whimpered and spat out a mouthful of strong blood, which made her pretty face, which was already pale from excessive blood loss, look extremely coquettish. This broken beauty deeply shocked Uchiha Obito's heart. And Uchiha Lin's next words directly stopped him. So, you really don't know me. In that case, don't save me. I'm not the Lin you called just now. After Uchiha Lin barely finished saying this, she felt dizzy and even her breath was unsteady. Uchiha Obito was stunned, feeling Uchiha Lin's gradually dropping body temperature, and the next moment he hugged her very gently, and then ran towards the Uchiha clan like crazy. In any training, Uchiha Obito has never run at this speed, and besides, he is hugging someone now. Uchiha Lin, who was in his arms, was humming songs from ancient times in her heart, feeling very happy and relaxed. Indra was played around by him. A small Uchiha, Black Zetsu really didn't take it seriously. Uchiha Obito, take it. When Uchiha Obito and Black Zetsu were performing a sadomasochistic movie. On the other side of Konoha, Asuma and Yuhi Kurenai were sitting in a luxuriously decorated shop eating snacks. Sigh, I really don't know when we will get the result. Asuma handed Yuhi Kurenai a dessert, drank the drink in her hand, and said to herself with a very sad expression. A week had passed since he knelt down to admit his mistake to his father and begged him to be assigned to the same class as Ching Shui. Until now, no news. His Hokage father told him at the time to let him go home and wait for news. This matter was not easy to handle and he needed to be coordinated. He only made an exception for his sake and told him not to have too much hope. Asuma, who was relatively innocent, really thought this matter would be difficult to handle. After all, Ching Shui was an Uchiha. Perhaps, we need to obtain the consent of the two advisors and the Hokage's assistant. The fact that the son of the Hokage and Uchiha are in the same class is indeed very topical and sensitive. But what Asuma didn't know was that whether they were Konoha advisors or Hokage assistants, they usually seemed to be very honorable and powerful, but when Sarutobi Hiruzen really wanted to do something, they were no different from ordinary genin. No one can interfere with what Hiruzen Sarutobi really wants to do in Konoha. Shimura Danzo's slamming of the door could only be heard, but when Sarutobi Hiruzen slammed the table, the whole village had to listen to him. The day after Asuma finished speaking, Sarutobi Hiruzen found Jiraiya and Tsunade and arranged the matter. He hasn't been told yet, but Hiruzen Sarutobi is trying to whet Asuma's appetite and use small means to educate this rebellious little son. Obviously, facing the scheming father of the Hokage, Asuma, the son of the Hokage, is still too immature. Asuma, what result are you talking about? Yuhi Kurenai stared at her big red eyes and took a mouthful of the dessert. She looked at Asuma's hesitant profile and her eyes flickered slightly. In the past, when Asuma was rebellious, even a child like Yuhi Kurenai thought he was just being mysterious. But recently, Asuma's strength has not only improved by leaps and bounds, but his skill in fire escape has surpassed the level of a chunin. His conversation has become more and more profound, and the melancholy between his eyebrows has become more real, with a hint of inexplicably handsome. What he often likes to say to Yuhi Hong recently is, "Hong, you have to think more." Although Yuhi Hong didn't know what to think, she unexpectedly felt that this sentence was very profound, and she didn't realize how serious it was. Asuma seemed not to hear Yuhi Kurenai's doubts, and took out a cigarette and started smoking. He was thinking, what should he do if he couldn't be in the same class as Ching Shui? Could it be that it is so difficult to change Konoha that two like-minded young people will be separated from the beginning? After a while, Asuma, who felt anxious, took a deep breath of cigarette and murmured, "Ching Shui, Ching Shui." And Yuhi Kurenai, who had been waiting for Asuma to respond to her, finally lost her nerve. "I'm dating you here. What do you mean by talking about Uchiha Chingshui here? Do you not treat me as a human being? Asuma, did you listen to me?" Yuhi Hong angrily slapped Asuma's arm and said viciously. "Still talking about Ching Shui, I am Yuhi Kurenai, not Uchiha Ching Shui." Asuma woke up with a start, and smiled apologetically to Yuhi Hong, but his eyes were filled with vicissitudes of life. In the past few days, Asuma had been thinking deeply at home according to Ching Shui's instructions, using his brain intensively to consider the future of Konoha. How could he have time to care about the relationship between his children? That is the recent news that he is waiting to be divided into classes. Otherwise, he would probably be practicing with Ching Shui. Who would waste time eating desserts with you? I was wondering if Ching Shui and I could be assigned to the same class. Asuma shook his head and said slowly, "Although I went to beg my father, I'm afraid this matter will be difficult to handle." Yuhi Hong's eyes widened. "Didn't you say before that we would go to the same class together after graduation?" Asuma smiled and lit a fire in his hand, trying hard to imitate the gesture of Ching Shui lighting the fire dragon for him. After a moment, a vague Konoha totem appeared on Asuma's finger. Although the degree of change in form is far from the same level as Ching Shui, it is enough to shock ninja school students like Yuhi Kurenai. Yuhi Kurenai looked at Asuma under the firelight and was stunned. "Hong, it's not that I don't want to be in the same class with you." Asuma stared at the flame leaf totem in his hand, and his voice became solemn. "However, there are always important things that have to be done, so I also have to give up something." Yuhi Hong blinked. She always felt that Asuma was so strange and had an indescribable charm compared to before. If her previous contact with Asuma was largely due to her identity as the son of the Hokage, then now she really has an interest in an affection for Asuma himself. Asuma looked at Yuhi Kurenai with an incomprehensible expression and sighed inwardly. Konoha is so big that even Yuhi Kurenai beside him can't understand his heart. Only Ching Shui saw the true depression in his heart, and was his only like-minded partner. At this moment, the most powerful illusion in the Naruto world, bond. Deep in Asuma's heart, it is taking root and sprouting, growing uncontrollably. "Boy, father asked you to go find him and tell him that your matter is settled." At this moment, Sarutobi Shinosuke walked in from the door with a smile, winked at Asuma and said, "Hey, why are you still smoking such expensive cigarettes? You are not allowed to smoke, they are confiscated." Sarutobi Shinosuke saw the cigarette in Asuma's pocket with good eyesight, and took it into his own pocket with great skill. Asuma's face suddenly fell and he muttered in a low voice, "Konoha's Anbu minister not only skipped work but also took a child's belongings by force. I think this village is going to be doomed. It's going to be doomed." But immediately, Asuma's face lit up with joy. Now that he has it, doesn't that mean Sarutobi Hiruzen agreed to his request? That means he can be in the same class as Ching Shui. Asuma stood up suddenly and was about to jog to the Hokage building when he remembered Yuhi Kurenai beside him. I saw Yuhi Hong looking at Asuma resentfully, but there was a strange brilliance in her eyes. "Forgive me, Red. Next time, I will accompany you well next time." Asuma nodded her forehead, turned around and started running. Her steps were very brisk and she even jumped a little. Yuhi Kurenai looked at Asuma's back blankly. Sarutobi Shinosuke on the side shrugged. "This kid is always so restless." Uchiha Obito ran wildly. "And hey Ju, who was in his arms, was already speechless. No, I was stabbed all the way. What do you mean by running to the Uchiha clan instead of taking me to the hospital? Don't you know that the Uchiha clan is good at yin and pupil techniques, not yang and medical ninjutsu? How many fighting madmen from the Uchiha clan would practice such a rare thing as a medical ninja? Back then, when Uchiha Izuna, who had such a noble status, was stabbed through the chest by Senju Tobirama, did you think anyone cured him? Black Zetsu complained in his heart about Uchiha Obito's IQ, thanks to it being a dummy, but any real person would be killed by Kenji's brain circuit. A moment later, Uchiha Obito, who had already reached the clan territory, was suddenly startled and suddenly stopped. In a daze, he remembered what Uchiha Satsuna once said to him. Those despicable guys from the Senju clan cannot defeat us in a head-on battle. However, they are good at yang release, so they know a few medical ninjutsus. They always hide and heal before fighting us. But it doesn't matter, Obito, the strong will kill the weak instantly. As long as your eyes are strong enough, you won't give them a chance to escape. At that time, Uchiha Satsuna's words still made Uchiha Obito's blood boil. My pupil power is already invincible, do I still need to borrow medical skills? Uchiha Chingshui, you have taken the wrong path. But looking back now, it makes Uchiha Obito feel like he fell into an ice cave. There are no ninjas in the Uchiha clan who know medical ninjutsu. Even if they do, they are only of a very rudimentary kind. Uchiha Obito looked down at Uchiha Rin's penetrating wound, his pupils trembling. At this moment, the wound is still bleeding diligently. Don't underestimate this blood. In order to make the performance seamless, the small body of Uchiha Rin was made of white Zetsu and the human body, and was jointly transformed by black Zetsu and Uchiha Madara. It can be called a masterpiece of ingenuity. If it is dismantled without violent means, it will be ugly. A flaw was found. Not to mention it can bleed, it can even be used. Go to the hospital. Is it still too late? Uchiha Obito was sweating profusely, regretting his stupidity while frantically thinking of solutions. Suddenly, he thought of Ching Shui. Ching Shui's medical ninjutsu has become famous in Konoha. In this regard, Ching Shui's treatment of Metkai and Mat's injuries can only account for a small part. The big part is the drunken Tsunade talking nonsense in the tavern, severely criticizing Konoha's current lack of emphasis on medical ninjutsu. Every Uchiha is proficient in palm senjutsu, what's the difference between other ninjas? As everyone agreed, the reputation of Ching Shui's masterful rejuvenation spread, and even most of the Uchiha clan knew about it. The only choice is to go find him, go find Uchiha Chingshui. Uchiha Obito gritted his teeth. His mind was in chaos and he finally made a somewhat logical decision. He didn't run to the hospital because Uchiha Satsuna had instilled in him the impression that Konoha was unreliable, and when something went wrong, he subconsciously went to him, the clan leader. But the problem is that Uchiha Satsuna is not very good at saving people. Uchiha Obito, who had just realized this, rushed to Ching Shui's home in a hurry. But Heiju in his arms felt stagnant in his heart. This is different from his plan. If it were a normal situation, after Uchiha Obito took it to the hospital to revive it, he would start the CPU link in the script. But Xian Er's magical operation forced Ching Shui into it again. Regarding Ching Shui, Heiju's attitude was to observe for the time being and avoid contact as much as possible. First, Uchiha Madara valued Ching Shui, which made Black Ju dare not make some small moves against Ching Shui like he did with Uchiha Obito. The second reason is due to the complexity of Ching Shui. After reading White Zetsu's information, Black Zetsu and a certain second-generation Hokage came to the same conclusion: Ching Shui is most likely the double reincarnation of Senju Tobirama and Uchiha Izuna. Even Black Ju wants to say that he has never seen this scene before. Therefore, even if Black is very interested in Ching Shui and thinks that he is a better plan executor than Uchiha Obito, he still plans to wait and see for the time being. But Uchiha Obito didn't give it a chance to hide himself, and forcefully rushed towards Ching Shui's house with Black Zetsu in his arms. Uchiha Obito, is your brain made of butt? Black Zetsu thought in his heart. It has decided that after Uchiha Obito becomes addicted to it, he will teach him a lesson every day. After a while, the door of Ching Shui's house. Uchiha Obito looked at the wide door of Ching Shui's house, gritted his teeth, raised his legs, and planned to go up and kick it. He wanted Ching Shui to heal Uchiha Lin directly. In his opinion, any waste of time is fatal. Young man, it's impolite to break into someone else's house. Just as Uchiha Obito stepped forward, a green figure flashed from under the roof and stood in front of him. If you want to find Lord Chingshui, you can tell me Crazy Adai. Uchiha Obito sneered. Get out of the way, I want Uchiha Chingsui to heal her. With that said, Uchiha Obito continued to move forward, but Mat Dai's strong and powerful arms stopped him. Please wait for me to report first. The power in Uchiha Obito's eyes surged, and he instantly turned into 3 Magatama Sharingan eyes and glared at Mat Dai. But Mat Dai was faster than he could glare, and he lowered his head suddenly, avoiding Uchiha Obito's gaze. Immediately, Mat Dai quickly and forcefully hugged Uchiha Obito's waist, gently threw him and Black Zetsu out of his arms, looked at Uchiha Obito's legs and said, "What a powerful eye power, young man. But even with this Sharingan, it's fine as long as you don't look at it." Uchiha Obito stared blankly at Mat Dai, who was covered in muscles and looked like he was about to burst out of his green tights. He was dumbfounded. This seems to be Metkai's abstract genin father. Why are you as strong as a bull after not seeing him for several months? Uchiha Obito, do you think you are the only one with the Sharingan? The door opened, and Shisui held the Tachi with an unkind expression, and slowly walked out of it. Hey, are you quite capable? You've actually been promoted to the 3 Magatama Sharingan. Want to try to compete with me in eye power? Shisui's tone was cold, he made a hand seal gesture, and the double Magatama in his eyes rotated violently. Before Ching Shui, Shisui was the #1 genius in the ninja school after Kakashi. Shisui-kun, please don't take action. Mat Dai shed tears and looked excited. For several months, my nursing home has only eaten meat and taken medicinal baths. I have used so much salary and resources in vain, and I have been waiting for a rude person to come to my door. Today, let Master Chingshui see the burning power of my youth. Zishui's expression suddenly changed, and his tone became panicked. Uncle Dai, it's not necessary, it's really not necessary. Is it really unnecessary? Shisui-kun. Mat Dai lowered his head, his muscles bulging. 3 Magatama's rude people must be treated with care in order to protect the peace of the Chingshui family. I was sweating so much that I stopped sweating. He really couldn't tell which door Mat Dai's burning youth meant to open to deal with Uchiha Obito. Uncle Dai, don't show off your youth easily, at least keep it until tonight. Ching Shui slowly walked out of the gate, smiled and patted Mat Dai on the shoulder. I've already said that you should try to keep a low profile in the village, Uncle Dai. Otherwise, if someone tries to rob you from me, I will be very distressed. Quote. Mat Dai laughed heartily. Lord Chingshui, what we signed is an unlimited mission. By the way, do you have any orders tonight? Mat's expression became serious again, and he said seriously, youth can be burned at any time. Ching Shui glanced at Mat Dai with a funny look, and said helplessly, tonight we are going to have a whole cow feast, and our family will have a medicinal bath together in the evening. Without you, Uncle Dai, these things will not be used up and will be wasted. Quote. Mat's expression relaxed, he touched his head and giggled. I really have to do it, it's such a difficult youth. Uchiha Obito looked at this scene and sneered, thinking secretly. Uchiha Chingsui, just immerse yourself in this useless trivial warmth. Just like me in the past, I like to do some useless things. Without strength, you can't protect anything. There's no point in cultivating a relationship with a genin like this. Thinking of his strength, Obito Uchiha looked at Black Zetsu in his arms, and immediately gritted his teeth, wanting to say something. He wants to ask for Ching Shui. But Uchiha Obito, who didn't even break into the house, couldn't even open his mouth when he saw Ching Shui appear, and just stared at Ching Shui. Ching Shui glanced at Uchiha Obito, then looked at the girl in his arms, a look of interest flashed in his eyes. Where did this girl come from? At first glance, she looked very much like Nohara Rin, but upon closer inspection, she didn't look the same. Her facial features were too exquisite, and it reminded Ching Shui of the face made in the game. In short, it doesn't look like natural facial features. If Ching Shui didn't know that this was a real person, he would have thought that it was Uchiha Obito who used illusions to masturbate. Uchiha Chingsui, there was a commotion in the village just now, and someone came to attack me. Uchiha Obito finally plucked up the courage to speak. His voice was trembling even though he wanted to be strong. She saved me. She blocked the knife that pierced my chest for me. Can you save her? I beg you. Ching Shui nodded. Healing diseases and saving people is my hobby. Uchiha Obito was immediately overjoyed. Following Ching Shui's instructions, he very carefully carried Uchiha Lin into the gate. He looked at Ching Shui nervously, not even daring to express his anger. Ching Shui looked at the girl with interest, the magatama in his eyes turning. Under the careful observation of the Sharingan, the structure of Uchiha Rin's body was clearly visible, but there was nothing strange about it. A very normal human body. Green fluorescence lit up in Ching Shui's hand, and he slowly pressed his palm on the wound on Uchiha Lin's chest. Uchiha Obito's expression froze, and he felt extremely awkward, as if something important had left him. Last time, it was Nohara Lin. This time, will the rescued Heiju see Ching Shui for the first time, and once again? Shisui looked at Uchiha Obito's expression with a sneer, feeling more and more that this fellow member of his race was a hopeless guy. Ching Shui ignored Uchiha Obito. When his palm came into contact with Uchiha Lin's body, he discovered something strange. There is no problem with human body structure, no problem with chakra flow, and no problem with wounds. The only problem is that the chakra and vitality contained in Uchiha Rin's body are too high. Ching Shui looked at the clan emblem on Uchiha Lin's clothes and couldn't help but become more interested. If Ching Shui didn't have the sensual ability of Thousand Hands, he wouldn't have been able to detect this even at such a close distance. The vitality of a normal ninja is like water, evenly distributed in the pond of the body. It may be higher or lower, but overall it will not be too far apart. Uchiha Rin is better, as if there is a core in the center, from which life force slowly escapes, allowing the rest to reach an average level. What a strange structure this is, with a small-tailed beast inside it. Especially this wound is even more outrageous. Although the blood is still flowing, with such a level of vitality, why has it not healed after so long? Ching Shui felt Uchiha Lin's body very seriously and felt more and more strange. This feeling of vitality and chakra. It doesn't look like the Uchiha clan at all, but has the shadow of the Senju clan. Black Zetsu was hiding in Uchiha Lin's body, watching Ching Shui's expression, and became inexplicably panicked. Originally, Black Zetsu was very confident that Uchiha Rin's body should be flawless. Even if Uchiha Obito's dementia operation allowed him to come into contact with Ching Shui in advance, there was no reason to see any flaws. But with Ching Shui's strange expression, Heiju always felt that he seemed to have seen something. While Ching Shui pretended to treat Uchiha Lin's injuries, he was thinking with lightning speed. An Uchiha has chakra levels and physical characteristics similar to those of a Senju. Apart from himself, there should not be another person in this ninja world. So where did this strange Uchiha girl escape from? Ching Shui stopped the blood from Uchiha Lin's wound, and a small trace of flesh and blood naturally appeared in his hand. He shook his head. Obito, she doesn't need treatment anymore. Uchiha Obito looked blankly at Uchiha Rin who was still sleeping, and then looked at Ching Shui's expression, and suddenly became furious. You put my benefactor to death. Uchiha Chingshui, please give me an explanation. Uchiha Obito looked like a madman, but the next moment he was pinned to the floor by Mad Dai and Shisui. He couldn't even move his limbs and could only howl some unpleasant words in his mouth. Ching Shui frowned. Why is there such a thing as medical trouble in the ninja world? The quality is too poor. From the laning target Uchiha Obito, you get 3 Magatama Sharingan. After hearing that the reward had arrived, Ching Shui looked at Obito Uchiha, who was still shouting, and laughed. He probably didn't even cover the warmth of these 3 Magatama Sharingan, so he hurriedly came to give them to him, right? This sincerity is recognized by me, Uchiha Chingsui. Uchiha Obito, her injury has healed. Just take her back and let her rest. Ching Shui waved his hand. Let him go. If the patient has any problems later, he can come to me. Uchiha Obito's expression suddenly became extremely joyful, and he thanked him repeatedly. Thank you, Ching Shui. Ching Shui shook his head and signaled Uchiha Obito to quickly pick up Uchiha Lin who was on the ground. Uchiha Obito stood up very quickly, as if he was afraid that Qing Shui would steal something from him again, and ran out quickly with the girl in his arms. Zishui stared at his back with a cold expression. Brother, he is really an immature white-eyed wolf. This time, even Mad Dai frowned and commented, this boy has no youth in his heart. But Qing Shui just smiled. Let's not talk about him anymore, let's prepare for the all-ox feast tonight. Shisui and Mad Dai immediately cheered and ran to the kitchen to get busy. After they left, Qing Shui slowly looked at the trace of flesh and blood in his hand, instilling a large amount of chakra and life force into it. As a result, this piece of flesh and blood changed violently, first changing from bright blood red to pale white, and then actually grew into a slender sapling. Seeing this familiar look, Qing Shui laughed. Work hard. Although I don't know whether you are Black Zetsu or Uchiha Madara, please come on and help me cultivate a pair of more powerful kaleidoscopes. Nowadays, Obito has nothing to interest me in. Obito, you also need to fall in love seriously. Wait a little longer until I grow up, and be the target of attention. Don't let the old man or Black Zetsu turn their eyes to me, otherwise I will be very troubled. Qing Shui used flames to destroy the saplings in his hands, then turned and walked into the kitchen. Uncle Dai, ask Kai to call Lin over. It will be more lively when there are more people eating at night. Okay. Uchiha Clan Land. Training course. After the daily training, Uchiha Obito sat aside with a sad expression. Different from the energetic appearance before, today he was particularly lacking in interest. As his sparring partner and confidant, Setsuna Uchiha keenly captured Obito Uchiha's strange emotions. As for Uchiha Obito, Uchiha Setsuna is really afraid of the heat when holding it in his hands, and is afraid of melting it when he holds it in his mouth. He wishes he could transform into a nanny and personally take care of his food and daily life. For his dream of reviving the Uchiha Hawks and for the will of Madara in his heart, this old man who has been squatting for more than 20 years is willing to give everything. What's the matter, boy? Uchiha sat next to him in an instant, rubbed his head, and handed him a bottle of cold water. If you have anything to do, just talk to me. Although I don't have your talent, I have lived a few more years. Uchiha Obito sighed and pointed at his eyes. There is the content of his practice today. A pupil technique specific to the 3 Magatama Sharingan. Elder of the Setsuna clan, I'm thinking about how Uchiha Lin saved me. Are you thinking about the identity of the attacker? The explanation from Konoha's top management is that he was a wandering ninja driven by an unknown ninja village, but according to my information, you were the only ninja who was actually attacked. Uchiha's expression suddenly became fierce. This is an attack by Konoha high-level officials on Uchiha geniuses, and the mastermind behind it must be Shimura Danzo. That fool has inherited the will of Senju Tobirama. He has always been very targeted and unscrupulous towards us Uchiha. Uchiha Setsuna seized every opportunity to instill the darkness of Konoha's upper echelons into Uchiha Obito. It can only be said that if Uchiha Fugaku had half the skill of this clan elder, perhaps what he would have cultivated would not be a weasel, but a mad dog that would bite outsiders. But Uchiha Obito did not criticize Konoha with Uchiha Setsuna as usual, he still looked gloomy and unhappy. Elder of the Setsuna clan, please put aside the matter of assassinating me for now. Uchiha Obito covered his face with his hands and said in a confused tone. That day I went to visit Uchiha Lin. I thought she saved me because she might like me, but she asked me to go out. Why doesn't she want to talk to me? Then why does she want to save me? Uchiha Obito fell into deep confusion. After Black Zetsu woke up, the first thing he did when he saw Uchiha Obito was to tell him to stay away from her and not talk to her. The sadness and sorrow between his eyebrows stirred Uchiha Obito's heart. In the past few days, Uchiha Obito has been thinking about this issue. Oh, Uchiha's eyes flashed for a moment, and he said slowly, let's talk to me about it. I have a lot of emotional experience. Uchiha Obito suddenly raised his head, really? Elder of the Setsuna clan. Therefore, Uchiha Obito described the events of that day in detail, retelling the conversation between the two people. Finished the story. Uchiha Setsuna laughed from the bottom of his heart, lamenting Uchiha Obito's insensitivity and being surprised by Uchiha Rin's appearance. Nohara Rin was taken away by the evil Uchiha Chingsui, and another Uchiha Rin jumped out of the clan. Okay, If there is no close emotion, how can you give birth to Uchiha Obito's Mangekyo? At this moment, Uchiha Satsuna and Black Zetsu's thoughts were wonderfully synchronized. One is planning to fall in love with Uchiha Obito, and the other is deciding to vigorously promote this love, and the purpose is to let Uchiha Obito awaken the strongest Mangekyo Sharingan. Black Zetsu did not choose to use a simple crush character, but brought a bit of arrogance that is special for this age, and successfully grasped the heart of Uchiha Obito. And Uchiha Satsuna acted as a wingman very well, and began to interpret and brainwash Uchiha Obito. Boy Obito, you don't understand a woman's mind at all. Uchiha raised the corner of his mouth instantly, rubbed Uchiha Obito's prickly head with his big hand, and said leisurely. A woman who gave up her life to save you. Although you called the right name, you recognized the wrong person. How sad this is. Think about it, Obito, if one day you save the woman you love, but she sees you as Uchiha Shisui and even calls out his name, what will you think? Uchiha Obito was stunned for a moment. Just imagining that scene made him feel extremely depressed and distressed. We, the women of the Uchiha clan, are the proudest. Even if she is willing to sacrifice her life for you, she cannot bow down to you and give up her self-esteem and life as a substitute for others. There was a trace of vicissitudes in Uchiha's tone. Uchiha women are the best. They dare to give everything for you. As long as you have her in your heart, they will belong to you for the rest of your life. Uchiha Obito listened blankly. A beautiful girl who only belongs to herself and is willing to give her life for herself. That's really great. Vaguely, Uchiha Obito felt that this might be a turning point in his life. But I really didn't know who she was at the time. Uchiha Obito still explained something for himself, but thinking of Uchiha Lin's face that was tailor-made for him, Uchiha Obito became more and more guilty, his heart beat a drum, and he became panicked. Why does he like Nohara Rin? Apart from appearance, the most important thing is that Uchiha Obito experienced the feeling of being cared for and noticed for the first time. However, Nohara Rin was actually just a girl who was friendly and enthusiastic towards everyone. In the 2 years or so since she entered school, Uchiha Obito had not left an indelible mark on her heart. But what about Uchiha Rin? This is no ordinary concern, it is sacrificing your life. Just as Uchiha Obito was in a tangle, Uchiha Satsuna's voice continued to sound. Obito, some people and some things are gone once you miss them. By the time you feel regretful, she may have disappeared into the sea of people or the smoke of war, and you will not be given the chance to regret it. Boy, I hope you are not like me, who only understood this truth through tears. Uchiha girls are not as cheap as you think. Uchiha Obito looked at Uchiha Satsuna blankly. Although this was all made up by the old man, it was obvious that it had shocked the heart of this idiot in love. Uchiha suppressed the smile in his eyes for a moment and patted his shoulder. Don't you understand, Obito? I just ask you, can you accept Uchiha Rin being with someone else? Uchiha Obito blinked hard and jumped up suddenly. Elder of the Satsuna clan, I request a 1-day suspension of practice. Go ahead, kid. Uchiha stared at Uchiha Obito's running back and smiled, but his smile had a hint of coldness. He needed Uchiha Obito to have such an emotional concern. Which Uchiha who has achieved great things has never lost his elder brother, younger brother, or lover? If there is no Uchiha Rin, Uchiha Satsuna will find a way to arrange one for Uchiha Obito. Chapter 71. Qing Shui Family. Shisui stared at his big eyes, puffed up his face and sat in front of Qing Shui, saying very dissatisfied. Brother, I'm going to graduate early too. After Asma received the news that he and Qing Shui were approved to be in the same class, he was so excited that he ran directly to Qing Shui's house, bought a lot of delicious food, and celebrated grandly. At that time, Shisui beside him was eating the food Asuma bought, but he felt unhappy in his heart. Is the son of the Hokage so amazing? Ask the parents to take away his brother by force. In Shisui's fantasy, there is still a high possibility that Qing Shui will be in the same class as him. But the biggest force majeure from Konoha told the young Shisui what a black hand is. Study hard, Shisui, you still need to continue to settle. Qing Shui looked at his dissatisfied brother with a smile and said slowly, Kai will become your future teammate, isn't that great? Shisui snorted. Kai is very good, but isn't brother better? Qing Shui shook his head, chuckled, hugged Zishui over, and touched his forehead to his forehead. Zishui's breath was stagnant, but immediately, he saw the 3 magatama emerging from Qing Shui's eyes. "Let me see your eyes, Shisui." As Qing Shui whispered, Shisui's Sharingan also emerged. But in front of Qing Shui's pupil power, Ji Shui only felt that he was like a small boat in the angry ocean, and could only barely protect himself by following the waves. "Brother, when did you get 3 magatama?" Shisui looked at Qing Shui in disbelief. Wasn't it said that the 3 magatama was a qualitative change of the Sharingan, and it was also a hurdle? My brother was obviously with him all the time, and he obviously didn't receive any mental stimulation. Why did he awaken the 3 magatama? Could this be called true genius? When can I catch up with my brother? The Sharingan in Qing Shui's eyes flickered, and the blackness of the magatama seemed to have a strange magical power. Just one look made Shisui fall in. "Shisui, when you have eyes like mine, come and talk to your brother about this. Before that, just be a lovely little brother." Qing Shui withdrew his Sharingan, while Shisui seemed to still be reminiscing about his power, sitting there blankly. After a long time, Shisui calmed down and his eyes became firm again. "Brother, I won't let you wait too long." Qing Shui touched Zishui's head, holding back his smile and said, "Actually, it has always been a double magatama, and the small one is also very cute." "It won't always be a double magatama." Zishui shook his head angrily and shouted, "Brother, I will surpass you one day." Qing Shui nodded perfunctorily. Okay. Zishui pursed his lips and glared at Qing Shui with the most ferocious look he could think of, like a erha trying to be serious, full of cuteness, and then ran back to the bedroom, looking very dissatisfied. "From the laning target Uchiha Shisui, you have gained the talent of teleportation." Qing Shui looked at Zishui with a chuckle. This younger brother of his is the same as Uchiha Obito. After the instant body technique was obtained by Qing Shui, all the capital he possessed had been surrendered, and he was in urgent need of further growth. As a good brother, Qing Shui chose to give Shisui a little pressure and motivation. Otherwise, how could Shisui continue to grow? And how can Qing Shui obtain new rewards? Regarding Zishui, his biological brother, Qing Shui still had high expectations for him. His eye power has special meaning to Qing Shui. Qing Shui slowly stood up, returned to the bedroom, and began to interact with Qianju Feijian. "Tobirama, I'm about to report to your granddaughter. Do you have any suggestions?" Senju Tobirama snorted coldly. Ever since he concluded that Qing Shui was the dual chakra reincarnation of him and Uchiha Izuna, Senju Tobirama's feelings towards Qing Shui have been very complicated. There is a slight feeling of looking at a son, but it is not so appropriate. All in all, it is much more pleasing to the eye, but also more picky. Take good care of Monkey's respect for you. Let Xiaozang be your teacher, which means more than when I let Jing be my shadow guard. Senju Tobirama thought of Tsunade's depressed appearance and sighed unconsciously. But he had a hunch in his heart that maybe things would change if Qing Shui became Tsunade's student. As for suggestions, you need to focus on your yang escape practice. There are many Uchiha geniuses with open eyes in youth, but this powerful yin escape power often leads to physical depletion and even induces the so-called blood-stained disease. Even if it is not life-threatening, it will limit its own potential, making it difficult to achieve major development in the future. Qianju Feijian gradually digressed from the topic and began to care about Qing Shui's body. He saw Uchiha Obito's 3 magatama, but he didn't take it too seriously. From Senju Tobirama's point of view, if there is no great chance, this extremely talented 3 magatama Sharingan will be a burden to Uchiha Obito, damaging his foundation, and it is difficult to say whether he can live beyond the age of 20. But what Senju Tobirama doesn't know is that Uchiha Obito has the potential to become a suture monster. "Hey, Tobirama, I'm asking you about Tsunade. Why do you care about my body?" Qing Shui glanced at the Senju Tobirama with suspicious eyes and whispered, "Are you seeing that my Sharingan is progressing too fast and want to find an excuse to slow down my progress?" "Don't worry, can't you also use my eyes? I won't be as stingy as you can use them if you want." Qianju Tobirama's fist is hardened. "I am caring about your body. Don't you understand, you little fool? You're kidding, why are you so impatient?" Qing Shui raised his eyebrows and then yawned. "For your sake, I will find a way to make Tsunade's life better. Good night, Tobirama." Qian Shu Feijian snorted coldly, as if he wanted to say something more, but after a moment, he said softly. Go to sleep, kid. So far, the whole night has been speechless. The next day, in a training ground somewhere in Konoha. Under the expedited procedure of a certain Hokage, Asuma, Shisui and Nohara Lin were exempted from the assessment process and became glorious Konoha genin. In front of them, Tsunade, who was probably hungover from the night before, was full of alcohol, rubbed her head vigorously, yawned, glanced at her students, shook the bell on her waist, and gave perfunctory instructions. Kids, do you see this bell? The first test is that you have to get it from me through teamwork. You can discuss it for a while first, or you can try to sneak attack me, but when you make a move, the assessment will begin. Tsunade smiled subtly. If you fail the assessment, you will all be eliminated, and I won't have to take care of you troublesome brats. After saying that, Tsunade walked to the shade of the tree and fell into a deep sleep. Asuma was about to take advantage of the opportunity to take action, but he remembered Tsunade's warning, when the action is taken, the test will begin. Tsunade seemed to be sleeping soundly. Asuma's hand froze on the ninja tool bag and he stared at Tsunade. A golden bell hung down from her waist. It made a tinkling sound under the breeze at noon, like a peaceful lullaby, calming her mind unconsciously. Tsunade leaned under the shade of the tree, her expression very relaxed, and she seemed not to be wary at all, and she really fell asleep like this. And her hungover look and slight snoring made her even more defenseless. But even so, Asuma still didn't dare to act rashly. Even if Tsunade's every move violates the ninja code, she is still Tsunade, the apprentice of the third Hokage, a powerful ninja who can fight against the demigods of the ninja world. Any blow she delivered was something no genin could withstand. As for the consequences of failure, Tsunade made it very clear. They were all sent back to the ninja school and had no chance to become her disciples. Asuma thought about the countermeasures, and after a moment, he slapped her hand suddenly. Nohara Rin glanced at Asuma who was full of confidence and surprise, and sighed inwardly, Asuma-kun is worthy of being the son of the Hokage. He has a plan in such a short time. I saw Asuma running to Qing Shui's side and whispering, Qing Shui, what do you think we should do? I'll listen to you. Nohara Lin was stunned. Is this the solution you came up with? But then, she smiled knowingly and walked over briskly. Although Asuma's actions are funny, it is indeed the best choice. Among their team, Qing Shui is the well-deserved decision-maker and force responsible. Listening to Qing Shui is definitely the most normal choice. Asuma, I want to hear your advice first. Qing Shui patted Asuma's shoulder, looked into his eyes, and said seriously. We are teammates in the team, and we are friends who share the same ambition and can trust each other on the battlefield in the future. Your opinion is important to me, Asuma. Asuma's face suddenly turned red, and a strange feeling of excitement and guilt arose in his heart. What was exciting was that Qing Shui said so bluntly that they were partners who trusted each other and had the same ambition. The guilt lies in the fact that I have forgotten Qing Shui's teaching again, think more. Asuma took a deep breath, thought hard, and said slowly. I think Teacher Tsunade is letting our guard down. I have information about her in advance. What she is good at is the close-range thousand hands monster power, which is so powerful that it can even break the earth. She is probably luring us closer. If we start a close combat with Teacher Tsunade, let alone us, Qing Shui will have a hard time withstanding it, right? Nohara Lin nodded in agreement and said softly, I think so too. Teacher Tsunade is probably testing our patience as ninjas. Qing Shui narrowed his eyes and said slowly, Asuma, Lin, what you said makes sense. Let me think. Asuma and Nohara Lin immediately fell silent and looked at Qing Shui with serious expressions, for fear of disturbing his thinking. Qing Shui seemed to be thinking, but actually. Dora Tobirama, please help me. Qing Shui calmly sat down next to Senju Tobirama and looked at Tsunade who was in his sight. What do you think should be done? Qian Shu Feijian chuckled and raised the corners of his mouth. I'll give you a message, kid. Think more. Qing Shui took a deep breath with a wooden face. Qian Shu Tobijian's face was full of joking. Looking at Qing Shui's reaction, he raised his brows proudly. The evil thousand-armed old ghost has learned to steal other people's words. Did you use the Sharingan once and learn to copy it subtly? Qing Shui cursed a few times in his heart, quarreled with Qian Shufajian, and said unhappily, I said, you don't think I can't win her, do you? I wouldn't say I'm completely sure of defeating her in a head-on battle, but if it's just a bell, with my speed and ninjutsu, it's nothing to me. Kionju Tobirama snorted coldly, but did not refute anything. He knew that Ching Shui was telling the truth. Tsunade is a relatively standard combat medical ninja. Fighting Ching Shui head-on is at a disadvantage in terms of restraint. From Senju Tobirama's point of view, as the dual reincarnation of Ching Shui and Uchiha Izuna, ordinary ninjas could not touch the corners of his clothes. Even Hitaki Sakumo failed to successfully capture Ching Shui in a short period of time. No matter how powerful you are, what's the point of not hitting? Ching Shui sighed and shook his head. Tobirama, you don't understand what I mean. You don't think that I will be deceived by Tsunade's words, do you? With the son of the Hokage here, as long as I don't smash your Hokage rock today, she will always find an excuse to accept us. Qianshu Tobirama's face turned dark. He always felt that Ching Shui was taking revenge on him for imitating him. Although this example is very accurate, why does it sound so weird? In fact, Senju Tobirama felt that even if his Hokage rock was smashed, Asuma, the unlucky boy, would admit that he did it and let Sarutobi Hiruzen whip him and save Ching Shui. Think about it, what would Tsunade think if I defeated her? Ching Shui sighed. You also heard what Asuma said during the meal that day. A woman who has been devastated because she lost her brother and relatives, will her heart be even more broken if she can't even beat the students of the ninja school? Woolen cloth. For example, do you think that it is because of your own weakness that you are unable to save your loved ones? Kionju Tojian's eyes trembled. He really hadn't thought of this level. But after careful consideration, Qianshu Fajian felt more and more that what Ching Shui said made sense. If Ching Shui takes the bell by force, with Tsunade's current fragile mentality, she might really start to doubt herself. Xiao Suna, she must have really fallen asleep. Senju Tobirama's eyes were a little heavy, and Tsunade's tired posture had not dissipated even in her sleep. But don't underestimate the enemy. Suna has the blood of the Uzumaki clan, and his perception will not be weak. Ching Shui, what are you going to do? At this moment, Kionju Tobirama, who was originally being asked for help, felt extremely troubled. It's not right if you win, and it's not right if you lose, but what should you do? Ching Shui glanced at Qianshu Fajian with disdain and curled his lips. I'm here to ask you, why are you asking about me? Tobirama, can you do something useful? Senju Tobirama turned his head in embarrassment. As a straight man, Tobirama Senju, he was almost certain to guess Uchiha Izuna's next move. Guessing the thoughts of a fragile woman was really a blind spot for him. At the same time, Kionju Tobirama's heart also felt warm. Without his relationship, would Ching Shui still treat Tsunade so tenderly and carefully? Just snatch the bell away. A ninja is so fragile at heart that he cannot expect others to understand him. This proves that Ching Shui does take him seriously. Forget it, just tell me what Tsunade's favorite food is, and I'll have an idea. Ching Shui's eyes flickered. This time, I will treat it as you owe me a favor, Tobirama. Kionju Tobijian looked at Ching Shui blankly. Ching Shui, isn't it good for us to be like this? Can this plan really work? Asuma looked at Ching Shui, who was smiling at the stove, and his throat moved. Just now, Ching Shui asked Asuma and Nohara Rin a strange question. It's almost noon since they woke up in the morning, have you eaten yet? In order to maintain a good competitive condition, Asuma and Nohara Rin only ate a little food. After waiting for Tsunade, who was late for a while, they were a little hungry. So, Ching Shui waved his hand and issued the mission to them, and also told them the plan to capture Tsunade. Asuma became an errand boy and went to buy good old hens and accessories according to Ching Shui's request. Nohara Lin was responsible for building the stove together with Ching Shui. While Tsunade was still sleeping deeply, Ching Shui was going to have a stomach-warming chicken soup with his companions. And the fresh chicken soup is exactly what Ching Shui was told by Senju Tobirama that Tsunade has loved to eat since she was a child. No problem, Asuma, Ching Shui said softly. Tsunade-sensei has said that the assessment will officially begin when we take action. In other words, if we don't take action, the assessment will not start. As a ninja, the first priority is to fully understand the rules. Whether it is the rules of the current assessment or the explicit or implicit rules in the village. Asma's expression was solemn. He always felt that Cheng Shui was teaching him something, but he didn't point it out clearly and hoped that he would use his own wisdom to further understand. Cheng Shui, I understand. Asma nodded vigorously. Anyway, I listen to you. Cheng Shui smiled, took the ingredients from Asma's hand, looked at him who was sweating profusely, and patted his shoulder. Thank you for your hard work, Asma. This man is so strange. He has told Asma countless times to think independently, to think more, and not to rely on him as the mainstay. But the more he said this, the stronger Asuma became dependent on him, and the more his thoughts followed Cheng Shui. Cheng Shui slowly pulled out Muramasa, and the cold blade shone coldly under the sunlight. Nohara Rin and Asuma were both stunned. The sword skills from Uchiha Izuna and Senju Tobirama were used to the extreme at this moment. The flames floating on the blade, the sharp and swift blade, completed the 3 tedious steps of bleeding, removing hair, and processing the internal organs in an instant, leaving only the clean whole chicken, drawing graceful curves in the air. Cheng Shui pointed his finger, and the water flow appeared out of thin air, cleaning the chicken in the air and rinsing away all impurities. Senju Tobirama frowned at this scene. No, you just use my sword skills to kill chickens and cook, right? What a wasteful brat. Oh, and Uchiha Izuna's sword skills, right? It seems that they are still for Shaozuna to eat. That's okay, come on, kid. Asuma and Nohara Rin were even more stunned. Can such sword skills be used for cooking? Even if Asuma is the son of the Hokage, this is the first time he has seen this kind of scene. But it's not over yet. 3 magatama appeared in Cheng Shui's eyes. The red dates, chestnuts, wolfberries, wild ginseng and other ingredients in his hand were accurately driven into the pot using the Uchiha throwing technique and embedded into the inside of the chicken. Under the careful observation of the Sharingan, a flame ignited in Cheng Shui's hand, and the stove was lit in an instant. While Cheng Shui observed the tenderness of the meat with his Sanmagatama Sharingan, he also used his superb fire escape chakra to change its properties, constantly stimulating the delicious flavor of the chicken. Qian Shu Feijian unconsciously raised the corners of his mouth, unable to hide his smile. Uchiha Izuna's fire escape and throwing skills are quite amazing, so what? That's not what Cheng Shui used to cook. Looking at it this way, Uchiha Izuna's chakra has no influence on Cheng Shui. Senju Tobirama subconsciously forgot that his water release was also used to rinse chicken just now. The red light in Cheng Shui's eyes flashed away, his hands shook, and the seasonings were poured in an extremely orderly manner. The flames in his hands seemed to come alive, lying evenly on the bottom of the pot to keep the temperature even. With such a luxurious technique, a pot of fragrant chicken soup was quickly completed. Asuma and Nohara Rin smelled the aroma, swallowed unconsciously, and their eyes changed when they looked at Cheng Shui. Cheng Shui, the chicken soup you made, my old man must have never tasted it like this. The way it is made is too extravagant. Asuma smelled the fragrance and even forgot about Tsunade in the distance. He just wanted to drink a bowl of blue water first. Not to mention Sarutobi Hiruzen, his old mentor Senju Tobirama's eyes flashed. If he wasn't a soul now, Senju Tobirama himself would want to drink a bowl. Rounding things off, isn't this equivalent to what Uchiha Izuna did? Cheng Shui waved his hand. What is luxurious or not? Whether it is fire escape, sword skills, eye skills or other ninjutsu, these powers are vassals of the ninja and are used to make the people close to them live comfortably. In my opinion, the ability of the 3 Magatama Sharingan to kill enemies and the ability to make a bowl of chicken soup for friends are equally important. Asuma and Nohara Rin both felt warm in their hearts. Before the real chicken soup reached their mouths, Cheng Shui's chicken soup for the soul made them feel comfortable. Okay, you're ready to start eating. Cheng Shui slowly opened the lid of the pot, and at this moment, Asuma and Nohara Rin seemed to see dazzling golden light bursting out of the chicken soup, but when they looked closely, the golden light disappeared again. Cheng Shui on the side smiled. How could it live up to the specifications of this chicken soup without adding some special effects? Golden and translucent chicken soup, chestnuts, jujubes, and wild ginseng are lined up in an orderly manner. The whole chicken is surrounded by stars in the middle. The presentation looks extremely appetizing. Cheng Shui breathed out slowly. The gentle breeze wrapped the fragrance and blew it to Tsunade's side. Tsunade closed her eyes and twitched her nose unconsciously. She had been drinking too much yesterday and hadn't eaten yet, so her stomach was already empty and she needed some warm food to fill it. Tsunade gradually woke up, opened her eyes and looked at the blue sky and white clouds that came into view, and sighed. She no longer had the heart to cook for herself. She would drink when she was sad. She would vomit after drinking too much. If she vomited, she could just use medical ninjutsu to heal her. This was the best cycle for people to forget the past. Chicken soup. Ah, subconsciously, am I still addicted to the past? I am such a weak woman. Tsunade smiled to herself, slowly sat up, and began to look for Qing Shui and others. She had just slept like this, waiting for Qing Shui and others to get closer, and just take it down quickly, as Asuma said. After all, how could a brat from ninja school resist such an opportunity? But when Tsunade raised her eyes, she saw Qing Shui looking at her with a smile and waving to her. Tsunade teacher, the chicken soup has just been made. Come over and have a bowl. Tsunade stared at Qing Shui blankly. Staring at Qing Shui's face in the sun, her vision seemed a little blurry. Tsunade looked steadily at Qing Shui not far away. For some reason, the second grandfather who had always been calm, wise and extremely gentle appeared in Tsunade's eyes. But it was just a momentary illusion. Qing Shui's face, which was very characteristic of an Uchiha handsome man, broke up Tsunade's strange sense of déjà vu. Tsunade blinked and looked at Qing Shui, who was wearing a low ponytail and wearing Uchiha uniform, and chuckled. In a daze, Tsunade remembered the story Senju Tobirama told her during her childhood, about his old enemy Uchiha Senna. At this moment, Qing Shui looks like Uchiha Izuna described in the story. He has a handsome figure, a wolf's back and a wasp's waist, and his black hair is as shiny as a horse's mane. However, the look between his eyebrows and eyes is not the viciousness mentioned by Kionju Tobirama. Instead, he has a plain gentleness. At first glance, he has a very gentle personality. Although the corners of Tsunade's lips were raised, there was a hint of sadness and loneliness in her heart. Who was she going to tell this joke to? All the relatives are gone, and the only living grandmother is coming to the end of her life and has to make final arrangements. Tsunade walked slowly towards Qing Shui. The aroma of chicken soup became stronger and stronger along the way, causing her empty stomach to churn. Having a bowl of warm broth after a hangover is an experience that can be said to be a worldly pleasure. Although Tsunade wanted to criticize Qing Shui's boldness, this was a serious apprenticeship exam, but she looked at the pot of chicken soup that was not ordinary at first glance, swallowed her throat, nodded honestly, turned her head and said, "It's okay to have something to eat before taking the test." Asuma and Nohara-rin suppressed their laughter. Although Tsunade looked very resistant, her slightly heavier breathing betrayed her inner feelings. This amazing female ninja must be very hungry now. Qing Shui smiled and picked up the big spoon, filled Tsunade with a full bowl and handed it to her. "Eat it while it's hot, Tsunade-sensei." Tsunade turned her head and stared at Qing Shui's face. For some reason, Tsunade once again felt a sense of déjà vu, as if this typical handsome face of the Uchiha clan hid the outline of Senju Tobirama, and Qing Shui's temperament gave her this strange feeling. If Qing Shui is not from the Uchiha clan, if someone tells Tsunade that there is some kind of special relationship between Qing Shui and Senju Tobi, she will even believe it. Tsunade took the soup bowl that was still slightly hot. These distracting thoughts in her mind disappeared with the aroma, and her appetite suddenly aroused. She is really hungry. Qing Shui slowly served a bowl to Asuma, Nohara-rin, and himself. On this beautiful and windy morning, Tsunade's class, who had not yet passed the exam, were sitting together like a family and had a pleasant meal. A team of 4 people, at this moment, already looks like a harmonious team. "Everyone, I'm starting." Qing Shui picked up the soup bowl and said with a smile. "I'm starting." Nohara-rin and Asuma both responded with familiarity. The two of them often came to Qing Shui's house to have a meal, so they were particularly skillful, which made the scene feel warm and cozy. Tsunade took a deep breath. She hadn't seen such a scene for a long time. Among the chaotic wine tables and casinos, the eardrums were filled with the noise of banging the tables and yelling. Sitting quietly on the grass like this, no longer drinking exciting wine, but a bowl of warm chicken soup.
Tsunade thought that maybe she would never have this experience again. Tsunade slowly picked up the spoon and said softly, "I'm starting." As soon as the chicken soup was in their mouths, Tsunade, Nohara-rin and Asuma all shook their heads at the same frequency and began to enjoy it. The chicken soup in the mouth is smooth and delicate, with a hint of jujube aroma, refreshing, the chestnuts are soft and delicious, and the sticky and glutinous texture is just right. The chicken as the main dish is even softer and boneless, and the main thing is that it has no impurities. Umami. For a time, the three people in Tsunade's class were all obsessed with eating seriously. Kyonju Tobijian watched this scene in silence, and the worry between his brows and eyes dissipated a lot. Seeing Tsunade gulping down the soup, Senju Tobirama was very pleased at the moment. At this moment, he didn't want to blame Hiruzen Sarutobi for his eyesight. Even if he was deceived by Qing Shui, it wouldn't matter. Otherwise, how would he arrange for Tsunade and Qing Shui to be in the same class? On the other hand, Senju Tobirama is even more heartwarming. By treating the fragile Tsunade like this and achieving such perfection, wasn't Qing Shui trying to give him face? Of course, if Qing Shui knew Kyonju Tojian's thoughts at this time, he would definitely give him a fair evaluation. Shrimp Tobirama, you are really a Hokage. Qing Shui glanced at the bell on Tsunade's waist, smiled, and gave Asuma and Nohara-rin a look. Under Tsunade's serious offensive, the bowl of chicken soup was completely eaten, and everything from the soup to the ingredients was destroyed. Although she didn't say anything, her eyes were glancing at the cauldron, as if she wanted to fill it but was embarrassed. At this moment, Asuma raised her eyebrows and murmured to herself, "Why is the old man here? I told him not to come. It's so annoying." Nohara-rin also showed a properly surprised expression, as well as the excitement that every genin should have when seeing Naruto. Tsunade followed Asuma's gaze and looked back. The old man is here too. But Sarutobi Hiruzen was not seen. Wait until Tsunade turns around again. The empty bowl in front of me was already filled with a full bowl of chicken soup. But Qing Shui's left hand had already covered the bell on her waist and held it in the palm of his hand. Tsunade was stunned for a moment, and then she heard Qing Shui say with a smile, "Tsunade-sensei, I'm taking action." Just like Tsunade herself said, the assessment begins when Qing Shui and others take the initiative. But this time, it was the end. Tsunade's expression changed, feeling angry and funny. "Kid, can I be considered a ninja in this way? Tsunade-sensei, this was a team effort between Asuma and Lin and I. Didn't we do a good job?" Qing Shui pointed at the shy Nohara-rin and the proud Asuma, and said softly, "Without their cooperation just now, my chicken soup can only fill your stomach, Tsunade-sensei, and will not let you look back." Quote. Tsunade snorted, "What a bunch of cunning brats. He has such a vicious mind that he uses chicken soup to deal with a hungover drunk. If it gets cold later, it won't taste good." Qing Shui picked up the soup bowl in his hand and clinked the bowls with Asuma and Nohara-rin one after another like a toast. He ignored Tsunade's complicated expression and clinked it with her. "This delicious bowl of soup is also a result of our teamwork. Teacher Tsunade, we must cherish the fruits of our labor." Tsunade narrowed her eyes, and after a moment, sighed, "I can barely count you guys through the level." Immediately, she raised the bowl in her hand and said boldly, "I declare that Tsunade class is officially established. Cheers, although you have all passed the level." Tsunade stretched out contentedly, feeling the vitality that the warm food brought to her body, but her eyes became dangerous. But the matter of fooling the teacher is not over yet. The first training of Tsunade class is about to begin. The content is, guard the bell in your hands. Suna pointed at Qing Shui, and then raised a finger. "I give you 1 minute to prepare, ninjas, to deal with emergencies anytime and anywhere." Asuma jumped up and complained viciously, "You can't afford it, right?" But Tsunade's eyes turned sideways, and Asuma suddenly closed his mouth, waved his hands with a smile. This was not at home. Sarutobi Hiruzen might whip him with a belt, but it would only be a spanking. He could still get up the next day if he tried hard. Asuma was somewhat aware of Tsunade's fiery temper. Another beloved disciple of his old father, Jiraiya, had his ribs broken countless times by Tsunade. This princess of the land of fire would not tolerate him, the son of the Hokage, who had a tougher background than him. Tsunade shook her head and snorted, don't think I'm taking revenge on you, you brats. Although your chicken soup strategy is effective, it is just a little clever. The battlefield is a ruthless and cold place. Only strength can protect yourself. The cuter the kid is, the more likely he is to suffer a cruel blow. Instead of you being instantly killed by a powerful enemy, why not let me, the teacher, let you experience the huge gap between Junin and Genin first. Tsunade's tone was serious, with a hint of pain and sadness in her expression. She had initially identified with her class, but then what Tsunade thought of was her miserable life. The former Naoki was also so enthusiastic and lively. He aimed to become Hokage and was a good younger brother. But a battlefield is a battlefield, and the enemy's kunai and detonating charms don't look at who your ancestor is, nor do they listen to the will of fire within him. The only criterion is strength. If you are weak, you will die. Even the strongest medical ninja cannot save you. Tsunade has decided that since she has accepted these apprentices, she will strictly teach them how to survive. Let's not talk about the will of fire for now, but try our best to master the skills and abilities to preserve ourselves. In short, we must survive first. This is Tsunade's current thoughts. She was very worried. Cuteness and heartwarming were good things, but for the tragic fate of ninjas, these advantages would only make relatives and friends feel more sad when they died. There are still 15 seconds, you must prepare quickly. Tsunade crossed her arms and looked at Asuma and Nohara Rin whispering, putting pressure on them. When the time came, Asuma and Nohara Rin dispersed far away, leaving only Qing Shui standing in front of Tsunade, holding the bell taken from her waist and hanging it on her index finger, smiling. Said. Tsunade-sensei, please give me some advice. At this moment, the situation seemed to be reversed. Qing Shui, who seemed to be at ease, did not look like a genin who was about to be hunted down, but more like an examiner, while Tsunade was actually a student who came to take the test to grab the bell. Asuma stood in the distance, looking at Qing Shui's figure with admiration and solemnity, and clenched his fists hard, fighting against Tsunade-sensei. I have to admit that I am indeed a burden to Qing Shui. But it won't be long. I will definitely follow Qing Shui's footsteps as soon as possible. Looking at Qing Shui's indifferent expression, Tsunade laughed even more. Her golden ponytail was blown by the breeze and her beautiful hair was rolled up. She folded her arms and said, "Kid, don't think that if the chicken soup is delicious, I won't give you a harsh lesson. On the contrary, I will treat you specially." Tsunade's body suddenly rose, and she immediately entered a state of acceleration. The power of her feet directly shattered the rock, causing dust to fly everywhere. Asuma and Nohara Rin stared at this scene in stunned silence. With this kind of terrifying explosive power, if it were to deal with the two of them, the battle would be over in just a moment. But Qing Shui just squinted his eyes, with the three Magatama Sharingan in his eyes analyzing Tsunade's movements frame by frame, shook his head, and even Shion Shin and Senju Tobirama commented. There is still a gap between Tsunade's speed and Hatake Tsukumo. Senju Tobirama rolled his eyes. Tsunade and Hatake Tsukumo were competing in speed. Thanks to this little brat for saying it. Do you think everyone is like you? At this age, Uchiha Izuna and his talents have been gathered together. Tsunade rushed in front of Qing Shui, but what came into view immediately was a pair of deep three Magatama Sharingan eyes. Magatama rotates, exuding strange magic power. Tsunade was suddenly shocked. She never expected that Qing Shui was a three Magatama Uchiha. Is there anything more stupid than putting your eyes in front of a three Magatama Uchiha? This is the terror of the Uchiha clan. With these eyes, most ninjas when fighting alone would not even dare to look directly at the Uchihas. In this case, how can we fight? Therefore, there is a saying that when facing Sanmagatama Uchiha, you must escape one-on-one. Boy, don't underestimate me. Tsunade quickly clasped her hands together, and a large amount of chakra exploded around her. Thousand-armed monster power and chakra release. As long as the amount of chakra is enough, even the power of the three Magatama Sharingan will be dispersed. When the level of combat reaches a certain height, the three Magatama Sharingan cannot be the decisive factor. Every great ninja has his own unique secrets for dealing with illusions and pupil techniques. Senju Hashirama, Senju Tobirama, Namikaze Minato, even Shimura Danzo. These strong men who had fought against Mangekyo Uchiha did not deliberately choose to take their eyes away from Uchiha. Among them, Senju Hashirama was the most egregious, and he would also choose to actively look at Uchiha Madara and affectionately. The earth calls. With the blessing of chakra, Tsunade accelerated again. And Qing Shui, who seemed to be relying on the three Magatama, was already extremely passive when he didn't expect that Tsunade could break through the power of the eyes. A smile appeared on Tsunade's lips. She was first careless about Qing Shui's strength and fell into a passive position. In her opinion, Qing Shui did not have an accurate estimate of the comprehensiveness of a shadow-level powerhouse, so the situation reversed again. This pair of master and apprentice have quietly taught each other a lesson. This is a valuable game. Asuma and Nohara Rin watched this scene nervously, not even daring to express their anger. Tsunade grabbed hard and stared at the bell in Qing Shui's hand. "I got you, kid." But the pleasant sound of the bell sounded behind Tsunade. Qing Shui patted Tsunade's shoulder from behind and said with a smile, "Tsunade-sensei, when did you have the illusion that you can't resist the three Magatama? When did the illusion occur?" Tsunade's figure froze, and her beautiful eyes widened unconsciously. She originally thought that at Qing Shui's age, the Uchiha who had awakened the three Magatama Sharingan should be proud from the bottom of their hearts. They believed that the power of the eyes was everything, and ignored the truth that there is heaven outside the world and there are people outside the world. But now it seems that Tsunade herself has fallen into the inertia of her thinking. Seeing this scene, Asuma waved his hand vigorously, unable to suppress his excited voice, and said happily, "This is Qing Shui. This is Qing Shui's strength. I knew how could the students taught by the old man be as good as Qing Shui." Nohara Rin fell into awkward silence. Asuma could say this, but most ninjas in this village couldn't accept it, including of course an ordinary ninja like her. But the shock in her heart was the same as Asuma's. From Nohara Rin's point of view, the situation has been completely controlled by Qing Shui. And his opponent is the legendary Tsunade Haim. Could it be said that Qing Shui's strength has? And as if responding to Nohara Rin's question, Tsunade turned around at an extremely fast speed, with a little chakra wrapped around her fist, and struck Qing Shui fiercely. The movement was so fast, even faster than before. This is strange power, the technique that Tsunade is best at. Qing Shui glanced at Tsunade's fist and did not choose to dodge. Instead, chakra was also wrapped around his fist and he faced it head-on. Tsunade's expression suddenly changed, but the inertia brought by the huge power made her unable to hold back. She could only shout eagerly, "Qing Shui kid, get away." But Qing Shui's fist was still moving forward. So, the two fists collided head-on. The huge force collided, and even the earth trembled slightly. Asuma and Nohara Rin subconsciously controlled their shaking bodies, their eyes already dull. Obviously it was fine just now. The four of us drank chicken soup happily, just like a family. How come in the blink of an eye, it turned into two monsters fighting together, and it turned into an incomprehensible scene? Smoke and dust flew, and the earth cracked. Qing Shui took a few steps back, looked down at the bell in his hand that was shattered by the combined force of both sides, and slowly let go of his hand. "Tsunade-sensei, it seems that I lost." The strange power of thousand hands should not be underestimated. Qing Shui moved his wrist. Although Tsunade's punch did not use all his strength, the strong force still made his wrist feel sore. "Your granddaughter's strange power seems to be much stronger than yours, Tobirama." Qing Shui laughed and joked, "After all, his strange power comes from the thousand hands Tanjian. Kid, Xiao Gang's talent for strange strength can match that of my elder brother, but you are still far behind." Qian Shu Feijian's eyes flickered, and while he was habitually quarreling with Qing Shui, he felt secretly frightened. Is he telling the truth? Yes, Tsunade's chakra level and control of chakra are top-notch, and she is a senju who has mastered perfect strange power. But the problem is that Tsunade's body is already fully developed and she is at her peak as a ninja. And Qing Shui's talent has just begun to be realized. Although Tsunade didn't use all her strength in this attack, Qing Shui probably did the same. After the collision of this punch, Qing Shui only took a few steps back, and his wrist could even barely move. Senju Hashirama couldn't help but wonder about Qing Shui's future. This boy has the appearance of my elder brother Senju Hashirama. As for Tsunade, she was also looking at Qing Shui who was rubbing her wrist in shock. She was ready to rescue Qing Shui. Even Jiraiya, Even if he tried to catch Tsunade's half-strength fist with his bare hands, he would end up with a broken bone at the very least. It can only be said that the fusion of Senju Tobirama and Uchiha Madara's bloodline is stronger than imagined. Tsunade frowned and walked forward quickly with great seriousness, grabbed Ching Shui's wrist and inspected it carefully. After a moment, Tsunade raised her head with complicated eyes. "Kid, you are really not simple." Today's entrance examination completely made Tsunade understand what kind of genius Sarutobi Hiruzen had given her. Extremely proficient in teleportation and illusion, 3 Magatama Sharingan eyes, and a top-notch physique even among the Senju clan. What's even more interesting is that compared to Ching Shui's strength, which is currently unknown to most people, he is currently more famous for his interpretation of the will of fire. That perfect answer sheet has long been used as a model essay. The teachers at the ninja school have organized students to study it many times. That bowl of chicken soup that warmed her from the inside out also allowed Tsunade to experience firsthand the difference in Ching Shui. Tsunade took a deep breath and said seriously, "But, what I want to tell you is that your strength is far from enough, and it is not yet time to relax. Every veteran Junin in the village will have a secret technique as a trump card. If I were on the battlefield and encountered an enemy like you, I would summon slugs and use large-scale terrain modification and offensive ninjutsu to restrict you. With targeted tactics, you would still face a very dangerous situation." Tsunade said seriously, "I can tell you a secret. I also have a technique that doubles my combat power. So, we still have to be modest and cautious. Ninjas are extremely fragile. No matter whether they are jonins or geniuses, a kunai or a detonating charm can kill you when you are relaxed." Even though Ching Shui's talent was extremely outstanding, Tsunade at this moment was still emphasizing the cruelty of the battlefield. This woman's heart has been too thoroughly hurt by the endless separation. She didn't hope that one day she wouldn't be able to drink the chicken soup made by Ching Shui. Ching Shui nodded calmly and said softly, "I understand, Teacher Tsunade, I understand that I am just an ordinary mediocre person, far from being a genius." Tsunade was stunned for a moment, nodded awkwardly, and barely followed Ching Shui's words. "Ah, yes, the appearance of a middle-aged person, yes. I heard that you are interested in water release. I will give you some of my second grandfather's techniques and study them carefully. Once you learn them, you will probably be a qualified chunin." Tsunade was talking nonsense. Looking at the resentful eyes of Asuma and Nohara Rin walking over, she couldn't hold herself any longer. Ching Shui's humility was beyond Tsunade's expectations. "This is called the appearance of a middle-aged person, right? Aren't you from the Uchiha clan? Why don't you have any arrogance at all?" Even Orochimaru, the genius in Tsunade's heart, compared with Ching Shui's talent, he is suitable to be called the middleman. Okay, you barely passed the test." Tsunade quickly skipped this embarrassing topic and waved her hand. "I declare that Tsunade's class is officially established." Asuma and Nohara Lin cheered, and Ching Shui also laughed. From this moment on, Ching Shui officially entered the Hokage family and became a member of Konoha's core circle. As a genin team, the tasks that can be taken on are between C level and D level. The content is nothing more than delivering couriers, finding cats, and handling sundries. The most difficult one is to transport some confidential items. Nature of the document. Only the B-level missions generally taken over by Chunin began to involve combat issues. In the past 2 or 3 months, Tsunade has taken Ching Shui, Asuma and Nohara Rin on a D-level mission, leading a 3 Magatama Uchiha, the son of the Hokage who is proficient in fire escape, and a genius medical ninja who can master senjutsu. Started a service industry in Konoha village. Asuma, who had just completed the task of finding the cat, sighed with an unhappy face and muttered, "Tsunade-sensei, there is no need for us to continue with this kind of mission, right? We are the future geniuses and elites, the ones who can carry the cauldron of Konoha." Tsunade raised her eyebrows, and Asuma, who was complaining, immediately stopped talking and raised his hands to show that he had no objection. Others may be more polite to Asuma, but recently Tsunade told him a truth through her actions: she can deal with the son of the Hokage however she wants. "How about Ching Shui, are you tired of these low-level tasks?" Tsunade looked sideways at Ching Shui. Unlike Asuma who was a bit impatient, Ching Shui didn't seem to have any resentment towards these complicated low-level tasks, and even felt like he was enjoying them. Ching Shui shook his head, with a smile on his lips. Tsunade-sensei, the recent mission is indeed simple, but on the contrary, most of the ninjas in the village also know that we are your disciples, and they also know the harmonious atmosphere of our team. Our Tsunade class has officially made its debut in Konoha. In these recent simple and complicated tasks, Tsunade did not just let Ching Shui and others complete them independently, but personally participated as a teacher, working together to find cats for the ladies, deliver express delivery, or take care of the children. Although it was inevitably noisy along the way, the atmosphere was incredibly harmonious. As a result, the whole of Konoha became aware of this problem. The princess of the fire country, Tsunade Heim of Konoha, formed her own team. And it's not like a perfunctory assembly line, but a disciple who is really willing to accompany and lower his body to teach, the kind with a good relationship. The influence this brings is not comparable to completing several high-level tasks. This is a priceless treasure that cannot be exchanged for many S-level missions in Konoha. Ching Shui, you little brat, you can see clearly. Tsunade snorted softly, rubbed Ching Shui's head, and smiled with satisfaction when she saw Ching Shui frowning slightly. The reason why Tsunade took Ching Shui and others to continue doing low-level tasks was to brush her face around Konoha and tell all the forces in the village that the members of this team were already hers and they should not do anything they shouldn't. There are plans. Therefore, among Konoha's high-level officials and ninja circles, Tsunade's class has been a hot topic recently. Led by Tsunade, the team consists of Uchiha geniuses, sons of Hokage, and civilian medical geniuses. The configuration can be described as luxurious and reasonable. This kind of lineup looks like the future Hokage, Hokage assistant and Konoha advisor. Whether it is the third-generation loyal supporter Inoshikacho, the two Konoha advisors, or even the Uchiha clan, ninjas with a little bit of vision and sensitivity, they all smell the smell of power from the composition of this class. But what I want to tell you is that the happy time of doing odd jobs is over. Tsunade's expression became serious, and she said slowly, as a ninja, you should have awareness from the moment you put on your forehead protector. You will kill many people in your life, and you will also be wanted to be killed by many people. Quote, killing and practicing are completely different. When you use kunai to open the enemy's chest at close range or use ninjutsu to destroy a person's limbs, it takes time to get used to the impact. Next, I will give you a mission to exterminate bandits. There are many enemies, and all you have to do is kill them one by one with your own hands. Whether it is Ching Shui, Asuma or Lin, you must adapt to the identity of a ninja as soon as possible and let your heart become cold to life. After Tsunade finished speaking, her expression seemed a little unnatural, and she said hurriedly, get ready. Immediately, she left with heavy steps, even skipping the team's routine meal together in the past few months. Asuma looked at Tsunade's back and snorted. Ching Shui, Tsunade-sensei looks down on us so much. It's just our first actual battle. Nohara Rin shook her head gently and whispered, Asuma-kun, this is indeed a very important level. Even many long-established jonin will be traumatized after coming off the battlefield. Ching Shui stared at Tsunade's figure and laughed inwardly. This woman truly regarded him as her disciple. Even though he suffers from severe hemophobia, he still has to personally guide Ching Shui and others through this necessary lesson for ninjas. No matter how fierce the blade is when practicing against the dummy, when it comes to seeing the real chapter, if it has not experienced mental training, it will inevitably become dull. Therefore, if you want to achieve the best condition on the battlefield, you must adapt to the daily routine of ninjas with blood on their hands in advance. Ching Shui shook his head with emotion, said goodbye to Asuma and Nohara Rin, and walked towards the Uchiha clan. And in the Uchiha clan, the discussion about Ching Shui has become the hottest topic in recent days. An Uchiha actually became a companion with the son of the Hokage and made Tsunade his teacher. The high-level admission ticket that the Uchiha clan has wanted for decades was so easily obtained by Ching Shui. Is this will of fire really that useful? Many Uchiha clan members, after seeing the astonishing treatment given to Ching Shui by Hiruzen Sarutobi, pinched their noses and glanced at the ninja school's Will of Fire textbook, trying to figure out something from it. Although I still can't see anything, I still rely on the defense to look carefully with the Sharingan. But the fluctuation of people's hearts has inevitably spread among the Uchiha clan. The name Shisui is constantly mentioned by the clan members. And at this moment, the home of Yashara Uchiha, the 8th generation Uchiha, sat on the main seat with a golden sword, looking at the smiling faces of Uchiha Tiehuo and Uchiha Anahu with stern eyes, raised the small wine in the glass, took a sip, and took a long he breathed a sigh of relief and said slowly. How about it, do you two understand who Qing Shui is with your Sharingan? I still remember that when Qing Shui led Nohara Lin into the clan, you two still wanted to find trouble. Why, do you still think about it now? I stopped you two at that time, didn't you complain to me afterwards? Uchiha Yashara slapped the table and laughed arrogantly. Come on, talk. Uchiha Yashara asked arrogantly, and madly slapped these two people. Qing Shui's little black boy, right? Talk to me. Uchiha Tiehuo and Uchiha Inahuo looked at each other, scratching their heads in embarrassment and smiling. Haha, Yashara-ni, look at what you said. Although there was a misunderstanding at the time, didn't we still listen to you? Fortunately, there was no disaster. Uchiha Yashara snorted coldly, glanced at the empty wine glass, and pursed his lips. Uchiha Inari picked up the wine bottle with understanding and carefully poured a full glass for this good brother. If Uchiha Yashara hadn't stopped them at that time, they would have had a conflict with Qing Shui, which would have been bad. Within the Uchiha clan, the difference between the so-called hawks and doves lies in how to obtain the top position in Konoha. The hawks advocate a tough attitude to intimidate Konoha and demand that the village return the high-level seats and other benefits that Uchiha deserves. The dove faction believes that the Uchiha clan has no allies, and their tough approach cannot deter Konoha. It will only be counterproductive and further suppress them, and further planning is needed. In the eyes of the three backbones of the Uchiha hawks, Yashara Uchiha, Tekka, and Inari, although Qing Shui's behavior seemed to take the initiative to approach the higher-ups of Hokage, his behavior did not seem to have anything to do with the hawks. But that's not important. The important thing is that the results are good. Even these die-hard Uchiha hawks have to admit that Sarutobi Hiruzen's strength this time is so amazing. If the third Hokage had given the Uchiha clan such welfare benefits as his own son as his classmate and the Fire Country Princess as his teacher, if anyone made trouble, the hawkish three Magatama would be the first to stare him to death. Why do the Uchiha clan keep quarreling with Konoha? It's because I can't see hope. I've been busy in the Konoha security department for more than 20 years, and I can't see an upward future. But now that Qing Shui has appeared, there is hope. Therefore, when Uchiha Tiehuo and Inahuo recalled their behavior of provoking Qing Shui that day, their palms became sweaty. Qing Shui only relied on his own ability to win the family's pursuit that he had been pursuing for more than 20 years. This kind of rare political genius in the Uchiha clan is too late to hold up, so why would he want to offend him? Just like what Uchiha Yashara said that day, if Qing Shui had a bad feeling towards the family because of this, it would be really difficult for the two of them to atone for their sins. Looking at the filled wine glass, Uchiha Yashara drank proudly. If there was anyone in the entire Uchiha clan who was optimistic about Qing Shui first, it would be him. Although this kind of optimism is mandatory. Uchiha Tiehuo and Uchiha Anahu also drank happily and gradually started chatting. Brother Yashara, tell me how high Qing Shui can reach in the future. Uchiha Tiehuo blushed, stared and thought, this is at least the position of a Konoha consultant, right? I think it is very possible for the Hokage to assist. For the current Uchiha clan, let alone the position of Hokage, just having one Hokage assisting Shimura Danzo can make them breathless. If one of us can sit in this position, then the days to come will be better. Uchiha Inari nodded repeatedly and sighed from the bottom of his heart, I really admire Qing Shui. He has reached such a high level just by learning the will of fire. Hearing this, Yashara Uchiha frowned. Both Uchiha Tekka and Uchiha Ino seemed to think that Qing Shui gained the favor of Sarutobi Hiruzen just by virtue of his will of fire. Before Uchiha Yashara could say anything, Uchiha Tiehuo sighed and said with a hint of worry. Brother Yashara, although Qing Shui has moved to that position, his relationship with our Uchiha clan is not deep. I'm worried that he will forget those of us who are connected to him by blood. Uchiha Inari also nodded. Yes, do we need to be prepared? In the ninja world, strength is what matters after all. The little guy Obito who appeared in the clan recently opened the 3 Magatama Sharingan at a young age. His future is limitless. Furthermore, I think both the Fugaku clan leader and the Setsuna clan elder seem to have some opinions on Ching Shui. Uchiha Yashira sneered disdainfully. 3 Magatama Sharingan. Although it is indeed rare. But Uchiha Yashira will never forget that day in his life. Ching Shui seemed to be the fusion of Uchiha Izuna and Senju Tobirama. The combination of fire escape sword technique and water escape knocked his long-famous veteran 3 Magatama to his knees, and even brought out the illusion. And, I will treat his injuries seriously later on. I'm telling you. Uchiha Yashira slapped the table and said words that neither Tiehuo nor Inahuo could understand. Ching Shui's strength is not something you can guess. A genius with 3 Magatama sounds very rare, but can you imagine an Uchiha who is a combination of Izuna-sama and Senju Tobirama? Uchiha Tiehuo and Inahuo's eyes were in a trance. What are they talking about? Did you drink too much? Izuna-sama can still be united with Senju Tobirama. If the ancestors heard this, they would probably jump out of their coffins. Uchiha Yashira looked at the two people's disbelieving eyes, recalling the way Ching Shui was disappointed with his family but still tenderly healing him, his fists gradually clenched. What's reputation? As a typical emotional Uchiha who repays his kindness, Yashira Uchiha had already given half of his life to Ching Shui in his heart. Even if he tells his own scandal, as long as he can clear Ching Shui's name, it doesn't matter. Let's see. Uchiha Yashira suddenly tore open his shirt, revealing his muscular upper body. Uchiha Tiehuo and Daohuo were startled, staring at the dense scars and scorch marks on their flesh, stunned. This is the injury I suffered a few months ago. It was all caused by Ching Shui. Uchiha Yashira took a deep breath and slowly recounted the true scene of his fight with Ching Shui that day. From his active provocation, to the almost identical water escape between Ching Shui and Senju Tobi, the eye power comparable to the 3 Magatama, and the sword skills that reminded him of Uchiha Izuna. Uchiha Inari and Tiehuo listened infatuatedly. When Yashira Uchiha talked about why Ching Shui had mastered the will of fire and planned to silently support the family, both Uchiha Tiehuo and Inahuo's expressions became heavy. When it came to Ching Shui being disappointed with his family because of Yashira Uchiha's provocation, even though the two of them knew the general outcome, there was a trace of unavoidable panic in their eyes. But in the end, Ching Shui still forgave me and healed my knife wounds with his own hands, as well as the burn marks from when I blew myself up. Now, do you understand? Ching Shui is not comparable to a 3 Magatama or even the Mangekyo Sharingan. This is a person sent from heaven as a gift from God to our Uchiha clan. Uchiha Tiehuo and Inahuo nodded repeatedly. At this moment, they finally understood the meaning of the word Ching Shui. But immediately, the two men looked at Uchiha Yashira in a strange way. It turns out that it was your boy who provoked Ching Shui first. Uchiha Yashira ignored the playful expressions of the two and said forcefully with a sullen face, in short, Uchiha Fugaku, the clan leader, is indecisive and cannot even grasp the power as the clan leader. How can he lead the Uchiha clan? This old guy Uchiha Setsuna is even more outrageous. Apart from shouting that he has Madara's will, he has not accomplished anything practical in so many years. The future of Uchiha is most reliable only if it is in the hands of Ching Shui. Uchiha Tekka and Inari looked solemn. This is about taking sides. But almost without thinking, Uchiha Tiehuo and Inahuo nodded solemnly. You can tell my experience secretly to those tribesmen who have misunderstandings about Ching Shui. Remember, you need to find those tribesmen who you trust and who have opened their eyes. Silently build a tribe for him while keeping it as confidential as possible. The team. Uchiha Yashira slapped the table. Ching Shui is fighting for the top management of Konoha. It's time for us people to do something for him. I recommend a senior author's excellent book, Naruto Seedlings. It's so beautiful that you won't even utter a word after reading it. Naruto, be my son. After the war ended, Edward Newgate, who was once known as one of the 4 emperors of the New World and the strongest man in the world, thought he would be laid to rest at the Navy headquarters today. Until he opened his eyes and found that he had come to a place called Ninja World, and met a child named Naruto. Gu la la la. Kid, do you have parents? Looking at the giant white beard, the 5-year-old little Naruto trembled. No, No, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I am an orphan. Naruto, be my son. Konoha, Short Book Street. In a tavern, the members of Sarutobi's class gathered together after a long absence. Jiraiya held the wine glass in his hand and took a sip happily. Tsunade, Orochimaru, the three of us haven't gathered together for a long time. I have already applied with the old man. After Mito-sama's matter is over, I will travel around the ninja world to find the son of prophecy. The chances of meeting each other will probably become less and less in the future. Orochimaru sneered, held the wine glass elegantly with his white fingers, took a sip, and said slowly, "You are really an idiot, Jiraiya. You plan to use your own life to confirm the toad's prophecy. Do you like to waste your life?" Jiraiya shrugged indifferently and glanced at Orochimaru with disdain. "What do you know? The great toad sage is a being who is said to have talked to the sage of six paths." Orochimaru said coldly, "That's just a toad." For Orochimaru, even he would respect the master of Raichi Cave as White Snake Sage, but in his eyes, even if an animal can speak human words, it is still an animal. Especially the creation of an illusory savior like the son of prophecy made Orochimaru dislike Mount Myoboku. How could a mere psychic beast judge the fate of mankind? In his opinion, only an idiot like Jiraiya would believe it unconditionally. As a friend of Jiraiya, Orochimaru had already persuaded him in his own way. But obviously, Jiraiya didn't listen. Jiraiya cursed a few words with Orochimaru, then turned to Tsunade and shouted, "Hey, Tsunade, to be fair, what do you think? This is the prophecy of the great toad sage." Tsunade waved her hand. "I have the same view as Orochimaru. If the prophecy is useful, then you don't have to go to the son of prophecy. Anyway, wouldn't everything it said will happen? Although I am an unfortunate person, I don't want to believe that fate cannot be changed. If that is the case, what is the meaning of life?" Orochimaru glanced at Tsunade in surprise. "Such philosophical words are really unlike what you said." "Smelly snake, what do you know?" Tsunade glanced at Orochimaru. "Compared to Jiraiya, an out-and-out idiot, you should be more careful. I heard that you and Danzo Shimura have gotten involved recently, and the old man won't want to see this. As the future fourth Hokage of the village, you still have to pay attention to your image. That old guy Danzo Shimura is not a good person. It is best to have less contact with him." Before the Third Ninja War started, Namikaze Minato was not the famous Yellow Flash. With Jiraiya wearing Myobokuyama's forehead protector and Tsunade fearing blood poisoning, throughout Konoha, only Orochimaru has enough prestige, qualifications and status to become the fourth-generation Hokage. Hokage, a position that many ninjas in Konoha would never dream of, sitting at the small wine table where Sarutobi's class is sitting, seems as natural as discussing what to eat for lunch tomorrow. Hokage, it's just a boring position. I have to do what I want to do. Orochimaru shook his head and whispered. But it sounds like there is an inexplicable feeling of awkwardness. As the sharp blade in Hiruzen Sarutobi's hand, Hitaki Sakumoji, Orochimaru remembered his attitude towards him that day. This shows that his teacher has begun to beat him. For Orochimaru, who had seen Hashirama cells and started dark human experiments, the desire to pursue immortality deep in his heart had begun to burn, and it could not be restricted by Konoha. Rather than being a stamping machine controlled by Sarutobi Hiruzen, Orochimaru would rather be a free ninja to pursue his path to immortality. "Don't talk about me for now, Tsunade, you seem to have gotten better recently, are you no longer wallowing in sorrow and pain?" Orochimaru squinted his eyes, looked at Tsunade for a few times, and said slowly. Tsunade at this moment looked completely different from the drunken person she was a few months ago. The whole person seemed to be alive, and there was light in his eyes. Jiraiya nodded and followed Orochimaru's words. "I heard that the old man gave you his son and an Uchiha brat. It seems that you two get along well." Orochimaru's eyes flashed. If Hiruzen Sarutobi supports him to become Hokage, then Shisui and Asuma's teacher should be him. Choosing Tsunade to be the teacher of this special class does not mean that Sarutobi Hiruzen wanted her to be Hokage. After all, it is impossible for a village cage to have such a weakness as hemophobia, but it is enough to reveal Sarutobi Hiruzen's inner thoughts. Orochimaru is no longer the next Hokage that Sarutobi Hiruzen firmly supports. Joined the ranks of inspections. "Those kids are pretty good." A trace of tenderness appeared in Tsunade's eyes. The past few months of getting along with Qing Shui made her feel the fulfillment of life for a long time. It seems that you have some good students, Tsunade. Jiraiya laughed and boasted. However, any young ninja will look mediocre compared with my student Namikaze Minato. If you can't discipline the old man's son and the Uchiha kid, I can ask Minato to tell them what a real genius is. Orochimaru sighed silently, speechless at Jiraiya's stupidity. Obviously, Tsunade got back on her feet because of those students. At this time, instead of praising you, you brag about Namikaze Minato's talent. What do you want to express? Make Tsunade think you are lucky. No wonder I can't catch up with him in my life. Sure enough, Tsunade sneered, genius. Well, after I bring those brats to blood, let Namikaze Minato teach me a lesson. Gone. Tsunade stood up suddenly and left the tavern in a hurry. Jiraiya stared blankly at Tsunade's leaving figure and scratched his head in confusion. Orochimaru, why do I feel that Tsunade's mood is not right? Orochimaru slowly drank the remaining wine in the glass, stood up and walked towards the door. You don't have to think about this, Jiraiya, go find your son of prophecy. This is the whole meaning of your future life. Among the three people who were sitting together just now, Jiraiya was the only one left in the blink of an eye. As they grow up, everyone has their own way of tolerance and pursuit, and the best partners in the past are gradually drifting away. Jiraiya, Tsunade and Orochimaru, the three people in Sarutobi's class are like toads, slugs and snakes. They are not the same species, so they chose different paths after all. The next day. The border of the Fire Nation. Little devils, there are hundreds of bandits in this valley. Tsunade folded her arms and gave the order ruthlessly. Today's assessment is to completely eliminate these bandits, leaving no one behind. And this group of bandits, whom Tsunade used as a teaching material, had someone else targeting them. At this moment, the strongest bounty hunter in the ninja world is entering the valley from another direction. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.